Hey, it's SmokeMonster, and welcome to a very special stream here. I've been gearing up for this for months now, hoping to show off the IGS PGM arcade system to you. And so let me just start off by introducing the system itself. This is what it is. It's often compared to the Neo Geo. I hope today that we're going to break that myth, though. This came out, it's the IGS PolyGame Master, released by IGS in Taiwan in 1997. And this thing is a little powerhouse, and as you can see, it's a really nice console-like looking system. It takes game cartridges, which I have a few back there, and then I have a big box of them to unbox for you. Sent in by Tim, who's going to be my guest today. Tim is known as GC8 Tech online, and he is the arcade tech from One Up Arcade in Brisbane, Australia. And there he oversees over 170 arcade cabinets. He restores and releases one cab per week, every single week. So he's a busy guy. He knows a lot, and he's changed the way I've thought about a lot of things in the arcade world. And I've been getting lots of like gear recommendations from him, including a nice cheap power supply, which is what he puts in a lot of his cabs, and things like that. But I'll bring Tim on in a little bit here. I just wanted to start off by showing off the PGM. And let me grab a game. Here's Dodonpachi Daiojo. And so you're talking cave games here. There's 3 of them that were actually released as a single big PCB that basically had the PGM built into it with the game. Kind of like, there's a lot of Neo Geo games that came out as single board PCBs too. And then it had a custom BIOS. And so what they've done through the years is they've been able to just convert the ROMs from that into cartridges. So I have 3 of those that I got from Sheep Nova, who sells on eBay. And I also got a PGM from Sheep. And he sells them at really good deals. And my patrons can message me for Sheep's contact info. If you want to buy, he'll sell it a little cheaper direct. But yeah, I've got 4 games. I have Dodonpachi Daiojo, Escaluda, Ketsui, and then Oriental Legend Super Special Pink Label, which is a cool beat-em-up. And fans of beat-em-ups are going to kind of like the PGM because this thing, as I said, it's a monster when it comes to 2D graphics. And Tim's going to talk all about the hardware that's inside this thing. But if you thought the Neo Geo was powerful, this thing could wipe the floor with the Neo Geo. I mean, this thing it came out 7 years after Neo Geo. So we're going to talk a lot about the differences mainly. And that's how you load a game in. You just snap it in. I have done a little modifications to mine. I just put a stupid LED on the bottom and inside of it too, because this is transparent, so you can light it up like Christmas. So I've done that. And let me just power it on and show you what I mean by that. And I have my home arcade system supergun here. And that's it. Now it's that consoleizes it. So there's, people like to do consoleization kind of stuff to consoles to systems like the Neo Geo. You don't really have to consoleize anymore. You can do just a stereo mod to these kind of systems and plug a supergun in, and it's consoleized. Has a supergun. If you don't know, it's a way to turn a arcade PCB, so an actual arcade game, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or whatever, anything that's JAMA, into a console. So you have your controller inputs. You have audio video output, and then you have a power input on the side, and so that's all you need. And you could use something like a Neo Geo DB15 controller. You can get Sega Saturn adapters for it, Genesis, Super Nintendo, PlayStation, you name it. You can plug anything into these now. And I have it actually hooked up to a Saturn adapter there and a Virtual Stick here. But before I start playing games, let me show the... There's the LEDs I'm talking about. I mean, it's just a subtle effect, and I'm kind of an idiot, I know, but it looks cool. This is a new, actually modified Neo Geo Mini Controller by Magic Trashman, which has a clicky stick inside of it. Clicky thumbstick buttons, and it's modified to DB15, so you can use it just like an old Neo Geo controller. But before I do that, let me open my it's not the weekly beer, because I already had one. This is the Black Toad Dark Ale. Not the best beer in the world, but it's fine. And while I'm opening this, let me dial up and plug Tim into the chat. So thank you to everybody who's joined. Oh, hey, Furtek is here. Speaking of Neo Geo. And and we did set this up already, so hopefully it just plugs straight in. No funny stuff. Hey, Tim.
Hey.
How are you doing?
Not too bad. Not too bad.
Welcome to the stream.
Well, thanks for having me.
I'm gonna pour a beer here, and so it's like noon by you now, right?
Yeah, it's
And it's tomorrow already.
Yeah, it's tomorrow. So I'm actually in the future, so I know what happened.
That's pretty awesome. Yeah, it took some strange logistics for us to work out like what the times would be to get Tim on here. So Tim, why don't you introduce yourself? I kind of talked about what you do at 1UP, but yeah, I should play that. I linked to a video actually in the comments of a walkthrough that your boss did of the arcade, which gives people an idea of what we're talking about here. This is not just like 170 arcade cabs. These are like pristine, fully restored, beautiful cabs with, you know, perfect video and everything. And you recap every single one, the chassis and things like that too, don't you?
Yeah. Every chassis gets recapped. It is time consuming, and you have to have a lot of caps on the shelf to actually be able to recap. But it's a necessary evil, and I normally allow about a day for a chassis recap. I've got, I don't know, it'd be probably maybe 1,000 or 1,500 different sized caps and voltages at work. So that comes in handy. It means I can just grab a chassis out of a machine, recap it, put it back in, and everybody's happy.
Yeah, you said you have like many thousands of dollars worth of caps on hand at any time, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah, you have to. Like it comes down to, because everything's done in house. We have to be able to, like, if
you can't just order a one by one like some people do.
Yeah, no, I have to have them, and they're. I'm actually due to do a stock take of them very soon, because obviously I go through a lot of them. But yeah, it's necessary, and the results speak for themselves. I mean, some of these machines, it's amazing they still keep going. I mean, you can service them, you can replace parts, you can do all that sort of thing, but at the end of the day, the boards, the tubes, the chassis, they're all 20 to 30 years old, and they weren't really designed to run that long. So yeah, it's a very challenging job. Most people that come in, they just think I play arcade games all day, and that's it. That's all my job entails, which is a common misconception. But
yeah, you get to play with a lot of capacitors and things, right?
Oh yeah, well that's the thing, like it's all go. Like I've got to, as you said in the intro, I think you said in the intro how we release one game every week, an extra game. So that has to be prepped, and I've only got 4 days to do it. And I mean, you can, if you take out 1 day for recapping,
that's crazy.
Maybe a day for rewiring the cab, and then you've got final testing. See, there's 3 days already. So it's very time consuming, but I really do love it. I mean, I've been working on arcade stuff now for like 20, 30 years now. So I've been doing it for a very long time, and I'm very passionate about it. And very lucky that I can, that I've got a job where I can use all the information that I know from all the work that I've done, and enjoy it. A lot of people don't have jobs they enjoy, so I think it's pretty lucky. So yeah.
Yeah, and that's awesome that your boss, like you told me the other day, he's very adamant about putting a CRT back into each. If the game had a CRT monitor, or the cab has a CRT monitor. And I think that's pretty cool, because some arcades now are going like all LCD, which is kind of sad for older games. But it sounds like you guys have. And I mean, the other thing is, if you go to a lot of arcades like I do, it's actually kind of depressing, and barcades especially. I mean, you'll see occasionally you'll come across kind of a place that might have 5 or 10 nice machines that are well kept, but the majority are burned out. There's no attention to detail. Parts are obviously needing to be fixed on them. And so, yeah, I really want to make a trip to 1UP one day. It looks like heaven on earth to me when I look at the walkthrough.
The thing about LCDs, the boss has always said, he said, if we had to replace any CRTs with LCDs, he said that would be it. That'd be the end of it. He wouldn't, close down not do it. But
That's awesome.
It's getting hard to get tubes. The other problem is there was a couple of Chinese manufacturers making tubes, but the internals of the tubes isn't very high quality. So the tubes are only lasting like 1 or 2 years, and that's it. So you can't even to find replacement tubes is very, very difficult. They generally have to be out of another machine or people that have got a couple of machines and they've done LCD conversions, etc. But it is quite hard to get tubes. Tubes is probably the hardest thing. But we do have a tube rejuvenator, or a tube zapper, as we like to call it at work, and it allows for tubes that don't work very well to have a little bit more life. So that's a very important thing as well. But yes, we're all original. All the boards are original. There's no emulation. There's no 60-in-1s. They're all original boards. Everything's restored, and worked on. So yeah.
That's awesome. And you guys kind of do a competition or friendly competition with Galloping Ghost, you said?
Yes, we do. They called it Arcade Wars. And basically, every month we pick a title that we both have. I think this month, well, because we're just into August now. I think last month it was Blade Master, which I think is a Data East game. It's quite a rare game. It's not very common at all. I'd never heard of it when the boss bought the board in the first place. But yeah, we do that. The highest 3 scores get added together and averaged, and then whoever has the highest score at the end of the month wins the Arcade Wars. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's really cool. And one thing I didn't mention yet was that you run gc8tech.com, a site that's specifically focused on the PGM, and you're the only source that I have ever seen of PCB scans, which is a big deal when you're talking about a really obscure system like this with like little to no documentation that people are thinking about making repros, or if there could be a flash card or something one day for it. This is really important stuff.
Yeah.
So how long have you been doing that for?
I've probably been doing it, like the actual scans. Like I've had the website for a very, very long time. The scans... probably maybe a year, not too long. Most of it actually came out of the basically there's a guy on Arcade Projects forum, and what he's done, he's made the guy's name, his handle is Fluffy. Yeah, and he's made where are they? I actually got some here. He's made replacement PCBs for the PGM cartridge, so that you can build your own cave shooters and you don't need to use other carts as donors. And anyway, he was asking me about some stuff to do with the PCBs, and I said to him, well, do you want me to scan one in for you so that you can look at the picture and then follow all the tracks around? That was the main important thing. The scans had to be high res so you could actually follow tracks around. And he was like, yeah, that'd be pretty cool if you could do a couple. And then that just started it, and I started doing one, and I thought, well, I might as well just do them all as I collect them. And now
you have a huge collection too, which I didn't mention, is that, you have so many games and rare hack carts that it's hard to even find the names of them. And a lot of them aren't in MAME. You and I were trying to get them into MAME. A bunch of them that you've been dumping. That was about 6 months ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, I got... there's been a little bit of resistance towards MAME and the PGM. I don't know exactly why that is.
It took a long time to even get PGM into MAME.
Yeah,
it was only a few years ago, I think.
Yeah, it's not everything is supported. Not all the games are supported. I know Demon Front is, but I know there's quite a few games that aren't, and that comes down to the ASIC, the ARM7 chip not being able to be dumped. So obviously, it's part of it. It works in 2 ways. It works as a copy protection method, but it also can be used to run the game off as a CPU, and it just runs an ARM7 core inside, and it's got some internal code.
Which is actually pretty impressive for the time, isn't it?
Yeah.
To have that extra, like an extra processor basically on the cart in addition to what you've got on the board itself.
Yeah, well, it's a 40 meg. I think that's the highest clock I've seen it clocked at, and
That's a monster.
It's an ARM 7, and it does a lot. Like, you only have to look at the Demon Front games, Gladiator, Road of the Sword, SVG, any of the games that use it as the main CPU. They're really like, sprites are huge, data moving around is huge. Like, the graphics are it just improves the whole thing. So
Yeah, they're like, when I first got these cave repros in and started playing them, I'm like, these are the most, I mean, I have a huge collection of games, and these are by far the most impressive, I think, power-wise, and they're great games as well. And it just really struck me, like, I was underestimating the PGM until I saw one of those in person. Well, and actually, let's talk about, if we can, oh, sorry, I cut you off there.
No, it's all good.
Let's talk about, I wanted to talk about, because the first cliche that I really want to break, and it's even on Wikipedia, is that the PGM is like a Neo Geo clone, or it was designed to be a competitor with the Neo Geo. And I mean, obviously you look at it and it looks kind of like an MV1B, the horizontal loading one slot. But the Neo Geo MVS came out in 1990. PGM came out in 1997. Between that, all of the big platforms had gone, not maybe cartridge based, but modular, where you bought the platform, that you install the platform in the arcade cab, and then you can swap out the game, the B-board or whatever. I mean, you have the Taito F3 was like 1992, the CPS2 was 93, the STV, it's the Sega Titan, was 95. These are all modular systems. So just because the PGM, I know the carts look a little bit like Neo Geo and it's red, and it has a little bit of the same, a few of the same parts on it. It's weird that people have picked it out as being a Neo Geo clone. I mean, it's way after the Neo Geo, and it's significantly more powerful. And I guess some people think Demon Front is a lot like Metal Slug. It certainly looks like it, but when you actually play it, it feels a lot different. I mean, you have those helper spirits or helper characters or whatever they are. But you had talked a while ago about the differences. You talked to me about the differences between PGM and Neo Geo, and maybe you could go over that again.
Yeah, well, the base, it's actually quite interesting. There are, around the era that they all came out, most people were using a 68K as the main processor, using a Z80 as the sound processor, etc., etc. So everybody was sort of doing similar things, but the PGM, like the 68K in the Neo Geo, is clocked at, I think, 12 megahertz. The 68K in the PGM is 20 meg, so you've already got some extra grunt there. The CPS1 is 10 meg, and then they released a 12 a little bit later on. So you've already got some extra grunt there. You've got the Z80 is 4 megahertz on the Neo Geo. It's 8 megahertz on the PGM. And then when you get to the ASIC, the ARM7, it runs at about, I think 40 is the highest speed I've seen it clocked at. And the Neo Geo doesn't have anything like that at all. There's no
so you're
extra...
talking about a multi-processor capability basically here compared to a Neo Geo. And the sound card on it, or the sound hardware on it on the PGM, is really interesting too. You were talking about that with me.
Yeah, it uses a 32-note MIDI wavetable synthesis chip that was actually released officially for sound cards. So 16-bit ISA sound cards it was originally released for. And it's a monster as well. I mean, it's not just, small, big in size. The actual chip is massive. It's bigger. It's even bigger than the 68K. Like, it's a big chip. It's got a lot of data on board.
It's 32 channels of MIDI, you were saying?
Yeah.
It's the old Turtle Beach super expensive sound cards back in the PC days.
That was where it was mostly used, was on the Turtle Beaches. And they were always known to be expensive, but they were also known to be very, very good quality. So it says a lot for what chips they decided to use. And the Neo Geo, any of the Yamaha chips, they don't even come close. It wasn't until the Sound Blaster AWE 32, I think, was the first sound card that was built that comes close to it. It's probably very similar if you grab the Wave Blaster add-on. for the Sound Blasters and plug that on. I mean, that's Sound Blasters add-on, but there are aftermarket ones now. But it was very advanced. I mean, nothing even comes close. There's no arcade board that I know of that ever has that much sound processing ability and the quality as well. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. And you were talking about it, and what you get off if you just plug your PGM in is mono, but you have kind of devised a way to get stereo out of it that you were talking about releasing some kind of video on that or something eventually so we can grab stereo.
Yeah, it's not too hard to grab the stereo out of it. The main sound chip feeds the data stream into a DSP, and then the DSP converts it out to line level audio, and then that goes through the amplifier and a roundabout, and then comes out through the JAMA finger. The only thing I want to look at is maybe making maybe an op amp booster for it. I think its line level is a little bit low for some amplifiers, and so I'm still finalizing that. But yeah, I do hope to do a video on it and to probably make a little PCB with probably some op amps on it or something like that, some low noise op amps, just to give it a little bit of a boost. So yeah, but it's for sound. It's really quite amazing. It's a huge difference to see a game in mono and then listen to it on stereo. So yeah.
Yeah, and I have Tim's channel linked. I have a link to it down in the comments as well. I also have your arcade linked there, and the video tour of your arcade, which I think is really cool. And you've been putting some PGM games into rotation lately, haven't you? I saw that beautiful Demon Front cab that you built. Demon Front, most people who first learn about the PGM, the first game that they learn about is Demon Front, because it's like this Metal Slug looking game, but it's an incredible little game. It's become expensive now for some reason. Used to be like $100 game, now it's selling for like $500. But you have like are there any other Demon Front cabs out there anywhere? It's not a cab that you come across.
That's funny you should actually ask that, because I actually do know. I did do a search of not necessarily rarer games, but games that are not common. With Demon Front, we are only one of 3 arcades in the whole world to actually have that game. So wow. That's pretty
and it's such an awesome looking cab too.
Yeah, it actually came up really, really well. The tube went really well. The chassis went really well. It just looked the absolute bomb. Like, it just looks so nice in the cab. And the yellow cabs is not too bad as well. Plus, we did artwork as well, because that's another thing we do. We do side art. We've got a big printer that we can print stuff up on. We do side art.
Oh, wow, yeah.
We do banners. We do even play fields. Where all the buttons are and the sticks. We do customized ones of those as well. So we do a lot of extra stuff. It's not just a cab that we shove a game into, get it working, and that's it. We do try to make the authenticity of the machines and make them look good as well. And a lot of people appreciate that. So yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Why don't while we continue to talk, I will fire up a game or something so people can see exactly what we're dealing with here. The kind of monster this is. Let me plug in. Let's see. I'll play Ketsui. Oh god, playing Ketsui live though, is that a good idea? This is like the hardest shoot 'em up on earth. I'm gonna do it.
He comes in. He's one of our regulars. We probably have a handful of regulars that come in, and a lot of them set world records at the arcade. So we're very proud. We've probably got, I think, 15 or 20. The Street Fighter games, the main, like Championship Edition, Hyper Fighting, World Warrior, and there was I can't remember the next one, but they were all the world records were all set by one guy, Dale, and he set them at the arcade. So it's not just an arcade to come and play on games and stuff. The people too do scoring as well. We do scoring nights as well with tutorials and all that sort of thing, because it's very different to play a game just to have fun than to play a game for having score.
Yeah.
So that's another cool.
I'm gonna play for fun here, just for the record, people. So, do you have a big arcade culture in Australia then? Still?
We used to. They had in the in the 80s to the early 90s were very, very popular with arcades, and then basically with the arcade crash and home gaming and home consoles and all that sort of thing, people just went out less and less, and all these people setting up the arcades, they'd all paid 20,000-30,000 sometimes for some machines, and no one was coming to play them, so they basically went broke. And there's a lot. So
basically, the same story as what happened in the US, pretty much.
Yeah, I think you guys did it a little bit sooner. Like, I think our arcades lasted a little bit longer. So, like, we went to probably late 90s, and then it all sort of, went pear-shaped in a big way. But we're there's a huge resurgence of interest in retro gaming, especially arcades. We even have people who come to the arcade and do photo shoots for all different types of things, which is another aspect of the the retro scene as well, which is a bit.
What do
different.
they do with those for?
There's been a couple. We did one of them was a retro clothing line, and so they came in and had models with shirts and shorts and like the retro clothing, and they were filmed and taken photos in front of machines or playing machines or any of that sort of stuff. So that's a really cool little thing that's started up as well. We've actually got another guy. I think it was actually happening today, which I don't work today. That's why I'm able to come in here. And they were doing another one today. But there's a lot of interest with arcades. We have quite a few barcades coming up.
Yeah, those are pretty popular here now too.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is because you've got to look at it, where are you going to make your money from? And a barcade...
A bar is a good place.
Yeah, the bar works, and then you have a sideline of arcade machines.
Yeah, I worked at a couple of restaurants that were basically maintained by the bar. The restaurant itself didn't really contribute much money to the setup.
And that's what's really hard for the arcade, is because we don't have a bar, we don't have a license, we don't do alcohol at all. So it's just a core... arcade machines at an arcade, come and play. But the big thing is the free play model, where people just pay an admission price to come in, and then they can play on whatever they want to for as long as we're open until we close. So that works really, really well. The other big exciting thing is there's a lot of kids out there who have never seen an arcade machine. They've never played one. They have no idea what they are. They're used to playing on an Xbox or a PlayStation or a whatever.
Probably
else.
Barely even seen CRTs anymore.
Yeah, and
especially not games on them.
It's really, really amazing to see kids first experiences on an arcade machine. You know what I mean? Which is the type of thing that I took for granted when I was a kid. I played them.
Yeah.
Most people around my age played them back then. So it's it's really good to see people enjoying themselves and for the first time. So and we've got, as you said, over 170 machines, and an extra machine gets added every week. So it keeps me very, very busy.
And so how much space do you have for more? I mean, it seems like eventually you'd run out of space with that many cabs. Do you have enough for a year's worth more of cabinets?
Not a full year at the moment. We are doing a little expansion. At the moment, we also do have pinball machines, but they're not. I don't have anything to do with them. I don't service them. I don't keep them going. That's done by a different company who comes and does it in-house for us, which is cool. So we've got 43 pinball machines, and we're going to be moving them into their own little room so they can have a dedicated room.
Oh, wow.
So all the space that the pinball machines takes up, which I'm not sure was in the video that the boss did, they can all have machines, and there's definitely room for another 54, 52 machines, definitely when they get all moved out. But no, definitely, I'm not sure what we're going to do after that. the boss has talked about it, but we always want to expand. We want to have new games. We want people to enjoy themselves, etc., etc. So the whole thing about having the extra game, or the game of the week as we call it, GOTW, and it's important because people, even though we have so many machines and you can't play every single machine in one go, like you need to come back, quite a few goes. But it's
I mean, I could probably go there for years. I like to just stick to 4 or 5 games maybe if I go into those barcades.
Yeah,
even when I went to Galloping Ghost, it was just overwhelming. One, you want to just gawk at everything, and it's like there's so much good stuff. Like, what do you want to play? Because you've only got however many hours you set aside to go in.
Yeah, well, that's really at the top pinnacle of an arcade. They have over, I think it's 700 machines. So that's just I don't know how
it's like a museum.
I don't know how you'd be able to keep up the servicing to that many machines. Like, you'd have to have a little army of people to do it, to help you with it, because there's no way in the world you could do all that just with one person.
Yeah, they must have a bunch of people.
They must have, yeah. But I take my hat off to them. 700 machines. That's a huge triumph, and they're all original. Same with us. They use CRTs, etc., etc. It's all good.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, they're all beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, how did they get these cave games? Maybe talk about that, because we talked about Fluffy's PCBs that are coming. Right now, these cave games, you have to sacrifice a game to make one, basically.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
And unfortunately, people were even sacrificing Demon Front, you were saying.
Yeah, Demon Front.
Which is shocking.
Is really an unfortunate casualty of this whole... I don't have a problem making reproduction cards, but when you're destroying really, really cool games in order to do it, I really don't like that. And that was part of Fluffy's idea. His idea is actually twofold. It's one, so you don't have to sacrifice another game, and two, you're not running any 3.3 volt chips at 5 volt for the I/O. All the chips that are on it are EEPROMs that are 5 volts. So that's
awesome.
Another reason for his boards is everything's at 5 volt. You don't need level shifters. Nothing's being overdriven. It's all it's all kosher, and it's all going to keep working. So that's another thing for his PCBs. So,
and you've got some ideas for how to... Right now, Fluffy's PCB covers the games that don't use the custom ASIC for their encryption, basically. So, unfortunately, that's a lot of the popular carts like Gladiator, Martial Masters, Demon Front. You can't make those with the Fluffy Repro yet.
No.
But you have been working on maybe a possible solution to that one day.
Yeah, it's very slow. I wish I could say, it's going to be out in a year or a year and a half, and everything's going to be good. But it's been a hard, slow slog to do it, but it is working. So that's the big main thing. But yeah, that would be the icing on the cake, is having a right at the end would be some sort of FPGA. That's been done to actually emulate the ASIC chip. That would be an absolute godsend. That would be really, really cool. And I think that's probably where we're going to have to go, because if there is ever a flash card built for the PGM, it's going to need to be probably on an FPGA, and it's going to need to be able to emulate the ASIC chip. So I can see that there will be a need for it, or someone's got to do something towards it, or else there can never be a flash card. And I mean, the other day I heard that there's a flash card coming out for the Brezasoft Crystal system, which only ever happened, I think there's only 3 or 4 games made for the whole thing. It was very, very underused, and a guy's done a flash card for it. So the PGM's got way more games.
Great games too. There aren't really any. There's that Crystal whatever game for the Brezasoft, but not really any good games for it, more or less.
No, that's the thing. I've actually got a Brezasoft. I've got one. It was faulty. Obviously, a lot of the boards I get are faulty, and I haven't finished repairing it. But the cool thing I actually got an original banner for the arcade machine. So I've actually got I've got to get it scanned in, because I'm sure there are people out there with the Brezasoft system that would like the original art, and I was lucky to be able to actually score one, because there'd be. I've never seen one again. I've not even seen another Brezasoft system to be honest. So yeah, and the PGM has so many more games. I think it has a much bigger fan base. It's a lot cheaper than the Brezasoft, obviously, and I mean the games just run. There's not really any games. I mean, okay, there's a couple of Mahjong clones which you'll probably see because I know I sent you a couple of those.
Yeah, should I get into the unboxing now?
Whenever you want. Like you're not doing too badly. But yeah, the bullets are everywhere. Like it's a crazy game. Like we've got people at work and who are like we've got Jesse, one of the guys who comes in one of our regulars, and he's just amazing at the shoot 'em ups. Like he holds the world record for I think Raiden Fighter's Jet, or is it 2?
Oh, nice.
2 or Jet. He holds the world record for that. He holds the record, I think, for Blazing Star as well, which is on the Neo Geo. It's quite a few shoot 'em ups that he's got the world record, and I don't know how he does it. You know, he just.
It's like ballet, I think. Some people are like born with that.
It's just amazing. It really, really is. But good on him, and that's the cool thing. So he's actually waiting for a few cave shooters to play. He knows that we've got some of the boards, but we just haven't released them into cabinets yet. So he's waiting for that. But no, it's they are really cool games. The other cool thing, I've not found any game for the PGM that has any slowdown in it. Which I think is an important little note to say, because the Neo Geo does suffer, quite a few games do suffer from slowdowns, which doesn't happen on the PGM at all. So that's another little...
Yeah, it feels like they purposefully add some slowdown into these cave games, but like the system itself like just cranks through. Even when you get into these beat 'em ups and you have like 50 things on screen and sprites that fill the whole screen, it just plays super smooth the whole time.
Well, that's one of the really cool things is that, the guy doing all the sprites must have just gone, okay, how big can I make them? And I'll just make them 10 times bigger than what they need to be. But because we've got the hardware to do it, let's do it.
You might as well.
Yeah, so that's exactly what he did. But I mean, it's good. The games are really colourful. They're highly detailed. Some of the games actually remind me a little bit of Raiden 2, like because the resolution of the screen on Raiden 2 is very similar to the PGM, so you get a very similar detail level. So yeah,
I have a Raiden PC. I have Raiden 2, and Raiden DX, but Raiden 2 and DX are broken still. I need to get to those.
Well, if you ever need any help with Raiden 2 and DX, just let me know. I've repaired quite a few. I probably will. Yeah.
Well, let me, so, Tim sent me this box of PGM stuff all the way from Australia, and I was extremely generous of you. And this is just, I was looking, because I was having trouble at first even finding PGM carts of any kind. Eventually, I got some through Sheep Nova, but I mean, they're hard to come by. And so you hooked me up with some pretty interesting stuff, and you said there's some surprises in here. And a lot of this stuff, like, I didn't look too far into it, so like I have no idea what I'm in store for here either. But maybe you could walk me through these as I open it, because a lot of these have like just their Chinese labels on them or whatever.
Yeah, one of the other interesting things, I mean, there's many interesting things about the PGM, but they release so many different versions of their games, some with different names, and it's different regions. Like there's China, Japan, Hong Kong, Korea, World, USA, and I think there's one more and I can't remember it. So you've got all these different cartridges built for specific regions, so you've got different text, you've got different title screens, and they release that. So like which game have I got here? Like Oriental Legends, that's got like 4 or 5 different regions.
Yeah.
So there's actually, instead of just collecting one card, you actually sort of have to collect 4 or 5 because there's slightly different regions. So that makes the PGM very tricky to know which card you've actually bought and what the title is. One little hint for anybody who has a PGM and isn't sure what some of the games are called, etc. When you plug them into your PGM, you go to the test screen, and I think it's the bookkeeping menu. If you go in there, it'll actually tell you in English what the cartridge name is. That's cool. That's a little hint if you don't know what it is and you want to try and figure out.
Yeah,
what
that'd
it
be
is.
really handy.
Yeah, it is. I think it's a bookkeeping one. It's one of the menus in there, and it says it right at the top, and actually tells you what the cartridge is. There's
Let me see.
also
I can.
another little helping bit with the version number. When you first boot a cartridge, it can tell you what the version of the cartridge is on the screen down the bottom. So that's pretty cool too.
I'm trying to look through here to find that. Am I in the right place? Let's see. I'm in the test menu.
Yeah, it's just if you don't insert a cart, it'll go to the test menu straight away. But if you've got a cart in there, there's a little test button near where the battery is. It's a push button. It's not the switch. There's a little switch, but it's not that one. It's just the push button one, and that'll take you into the
that's where I'm at.
Test menu. So yeah, I think it's bookkeeping. It's either bookkeeping or it's the one above it. But one of them, if you go in with a cartridge inserted, it'll actually tell you what the name of it is, which is pretty cool.
Oh, and if people want to get a good overview of PGM games, I would recommend Scarlet Sprite's channel. He has a really good collection. Tim's channel, of course, which I have linked, and Luke Morse 1 has a really good PGM collection too. He said it's complete, which is insane.
Okay.
Let me get into here.
The test menu that you're looking at now is different. Sorry, I forgot to mention that. It's different on the Cave games because
they have a different BIOS.
Yeah, it's slightly different. So that's not the stock one that PGM's going to bring up.
I see.
So yeah, so that's going to be a little bit different. I forgot to mention that.
Yeah, that makes sense. So here's the top game. I'll just open it. I like the ESD safe motherboard wrapping here.
Yeah, I like to do that just because the bags don't cost that much, and it just makes the whole it means that the cartridge edge isn't going to get zapped by any of the packaging or anything crazy like that. So I do like to wrap stuff up in anesthetic bags for just that reason alone.
Yeah, so let me plug, I'll just plug this first one in. We can see it. It's got a cool label. It shows the PGM itself on the side. It's something 3. Is this the 3-in-1, or is that?
It's probably Dragon World 3.
Ooh.
Dragon World 3 or Dragon World 3 Special. There's a little bit of a delay in the video at the moment, so I'm not actually able to see what you're working on, but I know once the video catch up. I'm pretty sure it's Dragon World 3 Special. And most of the Dragon Worlds should be a Mahjong type clone. Most of them are. There is a couple of other ones. They're not just all. That one there. That's Dragon World 3 Special. So that's the special version. I didn't realize when I was first collecting these that there is actually a special and a non-special. And funnily enough, the rarity is around the other way. The special version is super common, and the non-special version is rare as.
Maybe I didn't plug this in all the way. Let me try that again. Oh wait, there it goes. And I didn't mention this either, but Tim has a bunch of videos. If you're here's the thing about PGM. It's really cheap to get a motherboard in a game. Like if you just want a really good game to start out and a motherboard, you can get the motherboard for $40 or $50. Sheep Nova sells it direct for about that much, shipped. And you can get Oriental Legends Super Special is a really good beat 'em up. It's $50. And so you'll be ready to go, a full setup for under $100. That's insane in Arcade World. And Tim has a really good guide on picking out motherboards. And I have the battery pulled out of this one, as Tim recommends. I recapped it right away before I even powered it on. And you recommend the Revision 14 because it's... You saw that glitching on the first screen. I wonder if I don't have the cart plugged in all the way.
Yeah, that's the cartridge slot. It's either... It's not plugged in all the way, or maybe one or two of the pins are not quite.
Yeah, probably. I'll unplug it and do it again.
It's very, very fussy. That's probably one of the only bad notes. Well, not totally bad, but the PGMs are very, very, very touchy with their cartridge slots. and will display crap graphics, and that's, you just need to unplug it, plug it back in. If it's a game that you've just bought, I do recommend to clean the edge connectors on the carts, because they do get dirty, and they do cause graphics problems.
Yeah, I've been going over them all. Well, I've been recapping them, but I also use Deoxit. I do that for any cartridges, really, before I plug them into my systems. Let's see. And I do have the dual wipe version of the PGM, which is something you talk about. Some have a single wipe or a dual wipe cart slot on them.
Yeah.
Here it goes. No, it's fine.
The dual wipe is not as fussy. The Neo Geo uses a dual wipe, and it uses staggered pins as well, which also helps. But they are a little bit fussy about dirty carts. But I mean, it's not that hard to clean them. Just get some cotton buds and some IPA alcohol is the best thing to use. But if you don't have that, there's another chemical called metho. I'm not sure if it's got the same name in America, but that's what we call it over here, and that's what it's branded over here. You can use that, and that's not going to cause any problem.
I like to take a credit card and I wrap a paper towel around it, and then I dip that in isopropyl and I clean it out, and then I'll do the same thing with Deoxit, and then when I'm done, I'll use a dry one and just kind of clean it off. Use that for my cart connectors.
Yeah, that works well with the female connectors, but with the male ones that are...
Oh, yeah, you're talking about the male side.
Yeah, that are in the cart, that's, your... what'd you call them? Q-tips?
Yeah.
Using
we all have
them,
different names for those all over the world.
Yeah, we just call them cotton buds. So, yeah. So that's
and so
booted.
What is this, mahjong or something?
Yeah, it's a play on mahjong, basically. I don't know the total, why is it called Dragon World? As you can see, some of the pictures are a little bit sort of more adulty. I think most of these games, as you progress through the levels, the actual backgrounds change, and sometimes there's a how should I put it? A little bit more adult content on the backgrounds on this one, but you have to finish a couple of different levels. I didn't know to start off with, and with going through some carts and you turn them on and they go into a demo mode, and it's like, oh, okay, that one's a little bit more adult than what I thought it would be. Even to the point how I was telling you about, I've got an R-rated version of one of the PGM carts, and it's an official cart. And that's just totally adult. It's never been dumped, which is really quite funny. If I had a spare cart, I'd dump the cart, but I'm not willing to, because if you take chips off, desoldering chips, hot air, whichever way you want to do it, can damage boards, can damage chips, and because the game is so rare, I don't want to kill the cartridge that I've got now. Yeah.
I could is that one? That's one that you sent to me, isn't it? The one you're talking about?
Oh, the super rare one, the R-rated one.
I could maybe pass that along to the dumping union eventually. They have guys all over the place.
Yeah,
who would get it in the meme.
I've got all the tools to do it. It's just I don't want to risk the cart. That's the only thing, because I've only got one copy of it, and I've not seen. It was actually just a fluke. It was just a cartridge that had a different label to what I'd seen, and I didn't even know that it was R-rated, because the R-rated sticker is on the other side of the cartridge, so you can't, if you look at the cartridge, it just looks like the standard cartridge. So yeah, but it's a lot of the countries around, the China, Japan, a lot of their cartoony stuff is quite adult, or is just adult to start with, so I'm not surprised that there are a few games that are a little bit more risque than some of the others.
Yeah. It's been a while since I've had much smut on the channel. We need to get some of that on here.
Well, you'll definitely
played Sextris a while ago, and Hentai Columns. What else?
No. There's definitely some in the box. I know I sent them. I'm pretty sure that I did, and there's at least one. If not two, easily. So I know there's definitely one in there. So yeah, cool. Just a little bit of history about the cart. Dragon World 3 Special, as I was saying, is quite a common cart. If you ever want to get into doing Fluffy's PCBs to make cave shooters for yourself, or if you've got a friend that's got an EEPROM programmer that can give you a hand, because you will need an EEPROM programmer to make Fluffy's boards work. And I'm sure that I know there are EEPROM programmers out there that are like $100 or $150 that I'm sure would do the 27C 3-2 chips, and that, like, what, one cave shooter's like what?
Which is like the greatest deal in cave arcade games of all time, basically.
Donor as a converted cart, it's about 150 to 200. The original boards are not that cheap. The original cave boards are stupidly expensive, and I'm talking like $1,500 US to $2,500, maybe, anywhere around there. And I'd love to own them. I'd love to be able to scan them in and have them on my site. I think it would be really good because it completes the collection. But I don't see that happening anytime soon.
Yeah, you gotta sell a car or something to buy cave games.
Oh, it's just crazy. They just and I don't know who's buying them. Obviously, people are buying them because they get sold.
Oh yeah, I mean there are people. I just saw Dodonpachi sold in like a few hours. Somebody had it listed for like $800 on Arcade Projects. It just sold. I put a link to it on my Discord. It just sold really quick, and I was like, wow. Yeah, and I guess that's a pretty good deal for that game.
Yeah, it is for $800.
And it's relatively common.
Yeah, that's not actually too bad. There's actually the cave shooters are not all on the PGM. The PGM 2 has one as well. But
it
again,
has Dodonpachi Daiojo, whatever. It's like basically the same game, but with a different game mode.
Yeah, it's slightly different, but the PGM 2 is very expensive. It's over $1,000 for a game and a cart, and some carts are linked to certain motherboards, so you can't just plug any cart in and that's it. They're actually linked. You've got to buy the matching motherboard, so that's a bit of
I was this close the other day to buying PGM 2 with either Knights of Valour 2 or some other game. I talked myself down from it, though, and I thought I would just try to save my money. I just thought it would be kind of cool to get a PGM 2 just to see it, even though, the majority of the games are like outrageously expensive.
Yeah, I have a funny feeling. I can't remember if it's native higher res you can get out of a PGM 2. I know a PGM 3 definitely does, but I think it may be possible to get VGA out of an actual PGM 2. But I've not done it myself. But I think the PGM is just the fourth button, and that's it.
Cool. Okay, so I've got another cool one here, and it looks like you've included artwork with it.
Yes.
Is this a full kit? Is this unopened or something?
Yeah, it is. It's an unopened kit.
Wow.
I sent you a couple of them. I don't have a lot of them. They don't come up very often. They sell out really quickly, and I had.
That's crazy.
It is. Yeah, it's never been opened. It's straight from the factory.
So should I open it? I'm afraid to even
Nah,
this seems like it should go in a museum.
I do get them from time to time, so they are rare, but they're not like cave shooter rare,
Okay.
like the single PCBs. They're not as rare as that. And it is nice to have a cartridge. Obviously the cartridge that's in mint condition comes with all the artwork. You're basically unboxing it for the first time in its whole life. That's pretty cool. But yeah, they're rarer. Cool. I don't get a lot of them. Like Demon Front, I've never seen an art kit for Demon Front. I know it came with one, but I've never seen it. I only have more of the cheaper carts, but I'd love to have the full artwork, the full original artwork for a Demon Front. I think that would be so cool.
Yeah.
So that's Dragon World 2, I think. Yeah, that's
Awesome.
Dragon World.
Trying to open it super carefully so that I can kind of preserve the bag it came in here.
Yeah, well, you can even tell because if you have a look at the sticky tape, you can see that the sticky tape is even aged.
Yeah,
Like,
that's what I saw. Is it looks like 30-year-old tape on here.
Yeah, so it's I do get them. You can get them if anybody wants to collect full kits and have any mint sort of games. They are out there, so don't think you can't find them. I even get sometimes the seller will have a picture of the cart, and he's selling multiple carts, and the cart's just the cart. There's no artwork. He just has a picture of the cart. Sometimes when you buy them, you don't know, but you can get full kits with them. I've done that before. I had a seller send me 3 or 4, mint, sealed, never been opened, full kits.
And where do you buy your games from? I've got all of mine through Sheep now so far, except for these that you sent me.
Sheep Nova is really, really good. I've bought stuff from him before. He does requests, and he's really cool. He's cool if you've got a problem. I had a motherboard I think I bought off him a while back, and it didn't work, or there was something wrong with it, and he replaced it for me. No questions asked. He just sent me another one, and the replacement worked, so that was all good. But no, he's a really good seller for PGM. I'm not totally sure where he gets all of his stock from.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm friends with Buffalo Joe, too. That's cool.
He's been helping me get some carts. He's really magical about getting carts out of China. And he's been able to get me carts that I just can't even find. I don't know how he does it. He's just got a gift for it, and he's been sending me carts, which has been really great. Big thanks goes out to him, and I've been trying to send him stuff, mostly Neo Geo carts and tech support. So I do a tech support for him, so if he needs something worked on or wants to build this or build that, he'll send it down to me and I'll do it for him and I'll send it back to him. So that works out really well. So cartridges, the biggest place I used to get them from, they've sort of dried up a little bit, is straight from Japan. So Yahoo Auctions in Japan is where I get a lot of my PGM stuff. If you want any cave gear, even though they are stupid pricings, that's definitely the place to get, Yahoo Japan. So yes, I do get a lot of stuff from Japan. I do get some stuff directly from China, so that's a big thing. So there's a couple of different places you can use. Superbuy is a buying agent that I use, but there's heaps. I use Shopping Mall Japan for getting stuff from Yahoo Japan Auctions. I haven't used a lot of AliExpress or Alibaba or any of those sites to get cartridges and motherboards, but you can buy motherboards off them.
Yeah, I saw someone is selling the Cave Repros there too on AliExpress.
Yeah, I
don't know who that was.
That's very new. It's only been quite recent. I know somebody was asking me about it not too long ago. I think they'd seen them, or someone had told them that they'd seen something on AliExpress about them. So yeah, but that's only very new. You can buy them from Sheep. Sheep Nova are actually, I think, cheaper anyway. So
yeah, and you guys can message me if you're a patron, and I will give you Sheep's direct contact info, and you'll save $10 or $15 each on those over eBay prices, because he doesn't have to pay the fee, which is cool. Which saves you quite a bit if you're buying all three.
Yeah, it does. It definitely does. I'm not sure if he's actually making the conversion carts himself, like taking a donor and actually doing the conversion, or whether he's got someone that does it for him. So I can't speak about that. And I haven't bought any conversion carts for him. I've just bought original carts, mostly trying to get different versions. That's one thing I've been trying to do with the motherboard scans. That's another thing that's on my site. It's not just PGM cart PCB scans. I also do have motherboard scans as well, and other technical data about the PGM and stuff like that. So it's not just the carts internals that are there. The motherboards are also there as well. I was trying to get a lot of different versions of the motherboards, but that became quite expensive, obviously, because most sellers, if you say, hey, I want a Rev 11 or a Rev 12, they're not going to totally know what you're talking about. So it's hard to get revisions of the motherboards that are different than what you've got, because most people don't know. But that's all covered in my videos as well.
Yeah, you have some great videos on the motherboard revisions and why people would want to look for a certain one over another.
Yeah, they've been very, very popular, and it is a huge thing. The only other negative about the IGS PGM is the early versions of the boards used rechargeable NiCads or nickel metal hydrides. And if anybody is familiar with that sort of battery backing up, you'll know that all of those batteries leak and they destroy the boards that they're usually on. Unfortunately, the PGM does suffer for this, and that's one of the things that I do tell everybody is to get rid of the battery once you buy your motherboard and just clean it up. And you should be all right. The later revision boards, because the batteries haven't been on there for as long, usually don't leak. So that's why I always recommend that you get a revision 9 or newer board. But that's all covered in the videos that I've got on YouTube about that sort of stuff.
Cool. And Electron Ash asked, what's the rarest or most expensive arcade cab that you own or know about? I'm going to go grab one beer real quick while you answer that. I'll be right back.
The most expensive. That's a really interesting question. We don't have any of the original cave machines, but they would be through the roof just because the boards themselves are so expensive. Probably not the most expensive, but definitely up there. Definitely, it was about $3 or $4 grand. We've got a machine called Metal Gear Solid Arcade, and it's basically a Metal Gear, the PC version, but in an actual arcade machine. And it runs three-dimensional glasses, so you've got 3D glasses. You've also got a gyroscope in the glasses, and you've got a gyroscope in the gun. So as you move your head, the actual screen moves with you, as if you were actually a real person in the game.
So like VR almost.
Yeah, basically, yeah. It reacts to you moving around, or you can do it with the gun. You can move the gun around, and that will also move you around. It's a very high-tech machine. It was only ever released in Japan. The language is heavily Japanese, so it's very difficult to play because you just can't read any of it, and it takes a while to get into the game. But as far as I know, there's only 3 in Australia that were ever imported, and that's unofficially imported. It wasn't an official import. The only problem with it is, well, apart from being very, very expensive, is that people break the parts on it, the gun, the 3D glasses, the gyroscope. At the moment, it's actually broken. Somebody broke the glasses, and without the glasses, you can't play it because you can't see it in 3D, and the gyroscope won't work anymore. So it's
that sounds like it would be a recurring problem too once you fix it.
Yeah, that's the machines that get broken the most are gun games, and that's not just kids. That's adults. Adults do it. They break the guns as well. They
bastards.
Treat them really, really badly. I mean, we had a game, Crisis Zone, which is a gun game, a single-player gun game, and somebody broke the gun. We fixed it up, put it out. I think it lasted 2 days or something before someone broke it in a different spot, and then it was off for like 6 months to a year. It was off for a very long time until I finally got onto it and redid it all again, and I had to do some chassis work and some tube work. But it's back out on the arcade, and it's actually still working. No one has broken the gun yet, so that's a good sign. But yeah, people do slam the guns onto the machines and, you know, get a little bit frustrated if they lose and, you know, that sort of thing. So stuff gets bashed around, and it's not necessary, like, you know, but that's the problem. A lot of the people, they come and they think, oh, we pay our $15 or our $18, however many, you know, what we pay for, and then we can just do whatever we like. And that's really, really sad, because it's just, you know, the amount of time and effort that goes into getting these machines, you know, they really should be respected and looked after because of what they are and everything that goes into actually, you know, getting them going and keeping them going as well.
Yeah, I know those type of people who you're talking about. It's disgusting. I live in a really touristy area over here, and it's like 24 hours a day I have these people who have no respect for anything on earth, like walking around drunk in this area, just destroying it once a day, and then the city comes and cleans it up every night. All right, so this is another unopened kit that you sent me. And this one looks juicy.
Yes. This
just
one,
guessing.
This one is definitely a little bit more adult orientated. I wanted to send you a full kit because the artwork is just hilarious.
Awesome.
And I picked up from one seller. He must have had the last stock that he had, and I bought like 4 carts off him, and I said, have you got any more? And he's like, yeah, I got a couple more. And he's like, I'll just throw them in for free then, because I'd already bought,
Nice.
4 or 5 carts. And they came in, and they were all complete packs, never opened, mint condition. And that's one of them from that set. But yeah, it's a really cool game to get into a lot of the adult stuff. Obviously, after you finish a level and as you level up, the pictures in the background get a little bit more risque as such. But it's I was pretty sure I did send you a full kit of it, and I did send it to you. So that'll be the first one that's a little bit adult.
All right, if you're easily offended, then too bad. You need to learn. You need to grow up, and you're just going to be exposed to some really toxic human body stuff here. Let's see how this is. No, it's probably pretty tame.
So that one, the English name, there's a few things. One of them is really... for a little bit, quite a bit of money. I definitely know that one recently has been going for about 100 US, which for what it is, I mean, okay, I know it's a little bit risque, but it's not just like a $20 game at all. So
that's awesome. Yeah. Thank you. I can send these back to you one day too. I don't need to have a dragon's hoard of this rare stuff.
No, it's good. It's good to share. What's the point of having all these cartridges and knowing all this stuff about the system if people can't play it or get fun out of it, etc., etc. And it doesn't cost. Like I'm buying carts all the time. I do it slowly. That's one thing I like to do with collecting stuff, and a lot of people do as well. Is not just buy everything at once. Is actually enjoy the actual collecting of the carts themselves, and experience them, play them, show them to friends, that sort of thing. So yeah.
Well, thank you. This game is going to make me want to learn Mahjong. Because unfortunately, I probably won't make it to the second level.
This one, see, they've got 2 different types. One of them's Mahjong with a background that's a little bit risque. The other one uses there's another
like a
game
puzzle
called Photo Y2K, and you've got 2 pictures, and you've got to circle the differences in the pictures. And I think this is the one which you actually circle the differences in the pictures. But they're very similar games. Like, you go, Pretty Chance, yeah. So this is Dragon
There's some
World
good Alex arcade games like that I actually remember seeing one at a bus stop or at a truck stop in the US where it's just like nude pictures of really 1990s like Playboy centerfolds.
Yeah, so this is Mahjong, but with adult. Well, obviously the backgrounds haven't started yet, but as you go through it, the backgrounds do get a little bit more adult. I did send one. There's one that's also called Same, and that was the one I was first talking about. It's the one where you pick the differences in the 2 photos. So I'm pretty sure I sent you one of those. So obviously that's you haven't got to it yet, but they did sell a lot of these. The Mahjong carts are they're not rare at all. As full kits they are, but just as a cartridge to use, they're pretty cheap. If you're looking for a cartridge shell to use for Fluffy's PCBs, etc., some of these games are really, really cheap. I know Dragon World 2, I picked up a few of those for less than $20 US, which is pretty cheap for a cart just recently. But with the push to people getting more interested in it, carts are slowly getting more expensive because more people are buying them. Plus, you've got, as we talked about with the cave, people are taking current games and then doing conversions on them, and some of those games are really cool, like Demon Front's being used, and that's why Demon Front is actually so expensive now. I bought Demon Front, I think, for I think it was 100 US or a little bit less than that, maybe 75. But that was a couple of years ago, and now it's like 200 plus, and hard to get. Like at the moment,
Yeah.
I think there's only one.
It's not right now. The cheapest one on eBay is like 500 or something. Or,
yeah.
I think.
In Japan, I think the cheapest one at the moment is 200 US. So yeah, but it's really sad that people are using them for conversions, because the game is really cool. One of the myths is that it's just Metal Slug. It's a copy of Metal Slug. Which is really selling the whole game really, really short.
Yeah.
It does have some similarities to Metal Slug, but there are lots of games that have similarities to Metal Slug.
Any running gun after Metal Slug.
So yeah.
Yeah. Let me. I'll switch over to a game I can play for a minute, which is one that I picked up. I'll do Oriental Legends, because I haven't shown a beat 'em up yet, and that's something that PGM has lots of.
Oh yeah, there's heaps. Just for starters, you've got Knights of Valour, or KOV as it's also known. So if you're doing searching for Knights of Valour, KOV is good to search for, just in case you're having trouble finding carts. But there are so many old games. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Oh man!
I've got 9 carts here that are all Knights of Valour, with some version, obviously. Like Knights of Valour 9 Dragons. They all have bookkeeping menu, or it's one of the menus. You'll see it. It's definitely in there. I just can't remember which menu it is. I think it's bookkeeping. But yeah, you need a card. You need to have a card inserted, and then once the card is booted, hold the test button, and then the menu will come up, and then it'll be able to tell you what the cartridge is. If you boot it up without a cartridge in it, it won't tell you anything. It's just blank. So you do need a cartridge in there to do it. But it's really, really handy to figure out what games some of these are, because their names are very similar and very, very tricky. Plus, you even get carts. The name is in. Now, let me get this right. There's traditional Chinese, and then I think there's simplified Chinese. If I'm getting, I think they're the main two, and the actual text can be either or a mix of the both. So some of the text on the cards makes it really, really difficult to figure out. So
and this is the game I've been recommending to people, like, if they aren't interested in the shoot 'em ups, which of course is, to me, the bread and butter. I mean, that's the cream of the crop for the PGM. But you recommended this to me to get the Oriental Legend Super Special with the pink label, because it's kind of the 10 Oriental Legend versions or whatever, this is kind of the last one with everything in it.
Yeah, the pink label is it's not hugely common, but it's usually see, if you look down the bottom of that screen, it's got version 205, so that's the actual ROM version of this version of the game. Plus, you saw the name in the bookkeeping menu as well, so that's what I was talking about. But no, there are a lot of good beat 'em ups. We did talk about Gladiator, Road of the Sword, which is the same name. It's just got 2 different names.
That's a really popular one.
It's hard to get. It's expensive. The single board PCB is also quite expensive as well. But I think the cart's probably a little bit more rarer than the PCB, and that's the one that I sent you today. So
awesome.
That PCB should
be
arrived
awesome.
In 2 weeks or something.
I'll do a special stream for that, because Gladiator was one of the games. It goes by 2 names, like Tim said. Gladiator, Road of the Sword. That and the cave games were the ones I saw originally, and Demon Front, of course. But Demon Front, I missed the boat on that.
That's one of the tricky things, is because they all most games have a couple of different names. Like my boss, he only knew it as the Gladiator, and I said to him, "Do you want Road of the Sword?" And he's like, "No," and he's like, "Oh, I'd like to have Gladiator, and I'm like, Gladiator and Road of the Sword are the same game. It's like, oh, cool. It's like, well, yeah, I'll have one of those. So yeah, and that's the other thing that we haven't mentioned about the PGM is the motherboards come with an extra connector on the side that's for the third and fourth player. So some PGM games, you can actually have a third and fourth player in them, which makes the beat 'em ups really, really cool because you've got more than one person to, help beat up all the sprites. And there's always heaps of monsters, heaps of sprites that you have to do. So that's something that's a little bit different because I don't think the Neo Geo has any. I think they had was there an add-on or something?
Yeah, there was one single game that came with a special where you could link two cabs together.
Yeah,
something like that.
But it's so that's factory. That's factory from the start. The PGM has that capability. So you've got most of the King of Fighters do. What's the other one that does? The Gladiator does. It's a
Knights of Valour.
Yeah, Knights of Valour. Yeah, they do. Most of them do at least 3, if not 4. And that's the same for the PGM 2 as well. It's got a third and fourth player. And basically, you can wire it up yourself. The cable, if anybody's can't find a cable to actually do it with, it's the same as the floppy drive cable. So it's just an IDC ribbon cable.
Oh, cool.
And you can just branch them off and make your own connector. And the pinouts for that are all over the web. So that's not something that's unknown. The factory one actually goes to a long wire with a JAMA connector at the other end. So you basically put 2 cabs next to each other, and then you just run the cable from the PGM 3 and 4 into the other cabinet and just plug it into the JAMA connector, and then you've got a 4-player. So nice. Yeah, at work, hopefully we're doing a Road of the Sword. It's either a 3 or 4-player, and we're actually going to build a custom machine to do that. That's another thing we do like doing. A lot of games have third players, but in the arcade they only ever had 2 because the machines either weren't big enough or they were just pumping out 2-player machines, and that's just how it is. So like we've got a Bomberman 4-player, Bomberman World, and that was the first machine we did our own playfield artwork completely from scratch. And it's a 4-player, and the 4 players do get a lot of play at the arcade. Those are the ones that are fun when you come in with a group, so you can all play the same game. Yeah, well, it's like your Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. That's a 4-player, and that gets so much play at work. It's not funny.
That was the very first game I got.
That's one thing
when I started collecting
the PGMs with the third and fourth player. Not a lot of people know about, and that's what that extra connector is on the side. So so now you know about what it is. When you buy if you ever buy a single PCB version of the Gladiator or SVG or any of those like that, they'll also have that connector on there as well, so you can always hook up the third and fourth player. If there is no
that's
connector...
Spectroverse Generations, if people don't know.
Yeah, I'm sorry,
really popular
I should say the full
game.
names. I'm just used to calling it
SVG.
you're
used to.
SVG is quite a rare card. I don't have it because it is quite rare and it's hard to find. Probably the hardest cards to find and the most expensive, easily SVG as a card. It's rare as, it's very hard to find, and when they do sell it, it's stupid money. The next one is probably Martial Masters, which is a fighting game. So SVG is a fighting game. Martial Masters is a fighting game. The boss really likes Martial Masters, so we've actually got Masters in the arcade as well. That's our second.
And that's like a fighting game that's really kind of has a cult following.
Oh, Martial Masters does, yes, very much so. That's why I was always surprised that SVG didn't. But I did see something the other day with SVG being on the PlayStation 2. Mm-hmm. I have a funny feeling. Now, I don't know if it's the same version as the PGM version, or where it sits in the the SVG world, but I didn't know that the PlayStation actually had an SVG, so that's the interesting thing about that. Another little interesting thing is the Sammy Atomus Wave.
I really want to get an Atomus Wave.
It has. I've actually got one here. It's got a Knights of Valor game for the
nice.
for it as well, made by IGS, obviously, but not a PGM game. It's only for the Atmos Wave. So that's Knights of Valour: The Seven Spirits. So that was only released on this. It was never released on the PGM. It was only for this. So that's an interesting, an interesting game in the grouping of IGS and PGM and all that sort of thing.
Cool. I am using now, let me show this off. I just got this in from Magic Trashman. It's a Neo Geo Mini Controller that's modded with a clicky thumbstick and DB15.
Yep.
Which is good for beat 'em ups, so people don't have to hear my joystick noise all the time. I don't like it so much for shoot 'em ups, I have to say. I just don't like controllers for shoot 'em ups myself.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm probably the fighting genre, like Street Fighter and Martial Masters and SVG. I probably don't play them very often, and I'm probably not very good at them. I prefer either a shoot 'em up or a level platformer, some version of the level platforming games. Obviously like Demon Front, which is really, really cool. So I don't.
I thought growing up, I thought I was good at fighting games because I could beat my friends. But then I met my wife, and she just destroys me every time. And then I start watching like Team Spooky competition streams, and I'm like, oh my god, like I don't want to even like show my face in an arcade with a fighting game. Like these people are so good.
Yeah, well, the boss is really, really good. He's good at fight, like a lot better than me. He's got a few world records as well. But yeah, as I said in the start of the video, the big four Street Fighter games, all had the world record by one guy at our arcade. So that's pretty cool.
I love watching those competitions.
Well, that's another thing that we do. We do have competition nights. Like we had one the other day with Mortal Kombat 3, I think it was.
Awesome.
And we had a competition, and then you get a prize, and it's usually some cash prize, and then a trophy as well to go with it. So we do stuff like that at the arcade as well, which is really, really cool. We've actually got Mortal Kombat 1, 2, and 3 Ultra at the arcade, so anybody who's into the Mortal Kombats, they're all there waiting to be played.
Awesome. I have Mortal Kombat 1 and 2. But I'm not really good at them either. I definitely, back in the day, I was afraid of those cabinets when they were new because the people who played them were so good, and they were so mean to you, and I was just a little kid. And they'd destroy you in 10 seconds, and then, just totally take away your masculinity in front of everyone. And there'd always be a big line of people, so I usually just watched that one from a distance. Plus, it was like a 50-cent game, and I was playing the 25-cent games.
Yeah, well, one of my first fighting games, which, whether I should admit or not, that I used to be fairly good was... now I've forgotten its name. That'd be good. What is it? Time Killers.
Oh, yeah, I had Time Killers. I sold it, and I kind of want to get it again. That game, back in the day, I used to think that was I loved watching it and playing it, where you can chop up all the limbs, and they had it on a huge showcase cabinet at my arcade for like a year. So we thought it was like an awesome game. But now you look back on it now, and it's just like, it looks almost like shovelware. But it's so hilarious.
It's actually not a bad game. I actually, at one stage... actually used it as a little bit of a test board, and very, very early on when I started doing arcade stuff, which was 20
Time
years,
Killers is one I recommend.
Ago.
I always keep a mental list of the negative 5-volt games because you always find people have them on eBay for repair or whatever, untested. And a lot of times, like with my Time Killers, they just didn't know it needed negative 5-volt. So, like, the audio and the video was kind of weird without it. But I got it, and I just plug it into my setup, and it works 100% fine. So it's one of those boards you can get for, like, the cost of shipping. And a lot of times it just needs that negative, like, you know, like Primal Rage is like that too, and a few others.
Yeah,
Double Dragons, all of them, I think.
There's quite a few games that do. Normally, 99% of the time, the -5 is just used for the sound. So
yeah, that's the trick with Double Dragons. If you see them listed with no sound, you know that the person just didn't have negative. I mean, pretty much. Maybe it needs a recap or something, but
yeah, it's very common. Like, there's a lot of people. You know, most of the power supplies. I mean, power supplies with all 3 volts. So your +12, your +5, and your -5 are not uncommon. But yeah, a lot of people.
It should be standard, you would think. You know.
Yeah, it's a little bit up and down. Like some cabinets, because the ones without -5 at one stage were actually cheaper. I think that's what happened is they just cheaped out on the power supplies, and so there's a lot of machines out there that don't have -5, or people aren't used to a minus voltage. Like most people will know a positive voltage, you know, 12 volts from your battery in your car, you know, like 5 volts for this and that, you know what I mean? Like people actually know positive voltages, but the idea of a negative voltage doesn't.
It blows people's mind.
Yeah, they're like, oh.
Whenever I say it to people, they're like, oh yeah, you mean ground? I'm like, no, like I mean actual -5 volt. It's a thing. I don't even know what is it? Is it like drawing 5 volts or something instead of producing it? Like
no, what it basically is, it's -5 volts. So basically, you've got +5, so that goes to the top, and then you've got -5. So basically, the polarity is around the other way. If that makes any sense.
So you can still get shocked by -5 volt. Is that what you're saying?
Oh no! Any voltage, -5 is not going to shock you. None of the +12.
But if I lick my finger and I touch it, I wouldn't feel anything.
No, won't feel anything. Like you know when you get your tongue,
it's just that little
to a 9-volt battery, and you get a zap.
Oh yeah.
You're not going to get any of that stuff with +12 or +5 or anything like that out of an arcade supply. Don't put your finger on the AC screws or terminals.
Don't do that. that's a different story.
Yeah, that's a very different story. But no, you're not going to be shocked by -5 or +12 or any of those voltages that it has on a JAMA board. They're completely safe.
I got shocked by a solid state 1,000 watt amplifier a long time ago. When I had it open, it had like something left in the capacitor or something that really like knocked me on my ass.
Well, that's very similar to how the flyback transformers work in an arcade cab. Like they keep their voltage for quite a while, and you could have it unplugged for a week, and it's still got enough juice to give you a bit of a jump. So you know there are high voltages in arcade machines, and they need to be treated with respect so that you don't injure yourself, your cab, or somebody else,
or your cat.
Yeah, well, the cats get in and out of my cabinets all the time, so it is important.
Yeah, I used like a Hap Power Pro Ultimate to build my power supply just because I was worried about my cat mainly, because he just gets into everything. He's sticking his nose in everything. And that was before you could get like 3D prints to cover up the terminals or whatever. Although, I mean, you could put some tape over it.
Yeah, how I do it, I just have a piece of Perspex with a right angle on the bottom, and it just goes up and covers all the terminals, and you have to really push your finger in there to actually do it. Like, if you just accidentally bump it, you're going to be fine. So yeah, but it's safety. There's actually a video that I've done as well. On chassis safety and what to do and what not to do, etc., etc. So that's actually a video that I've done. If anybody's interested about that subject, plus I've got a whole heap of other videos on all sorts of different stuff as well. So I'm sure if you have a look,
and you've been doing a full Restore of a Cabinet 2 series, haven't you?
Yeah, I started to do that. The tricky thing with that is that the camera angles are bad because I don't have somebody to hold the camera for me. So the camera has to be fixed, and I need to work around it. So the results haven't been brilliant, but I've definitely started.
I could tell immediately from your first video. I started pushing your channel because I'm like, this is going to be great, because you came out, right away with your first PGM videos. You just have a great personality for YouTube, and I mean, like, you actually know what you're talking about, which is kind of rare, actually. I mean, at the technical level, like, I don't know what I'm talking about most of the time. So here's a game that you sent that has no label on it.
Ah, I know what that is.
Oh, let's see.
It's a hack cartridge, so that should be...
Oh, cool.
If you have a look at the side of it, you'll see there are some laminated stickers.
Oh, yeah, cool.
I think it says, is it SF or SF hack or SF something?
This one is LSQH2 plus hack one. Yeah, SF hack.
SF. So this is the Street Fighter hack. So this is...
Oh, yeah, I heard about this, yeah.
This is, yeah, that...
Yeah, you've got a cool theory about these hat carts, because the hat carts are really interesting in this respect.
They're very, very interesting for quite a few reasons. The quality of the hack is really, really well done. The sprites that they've added, because what they've done is they've taken an original game, very smooth, it looks good. So there's one area. The next area is that they use all the original stickers. So you've got your hologram stickers, your tested stickers. They're all there. They're all original. They're all real. But the cool thing is inside the cart, actually all of the parts that are in it are all off the shelf, straight off the shelf. So that's the biggest interesting point, is that at some stage I'm hoping that hack carts will lead the way for either a flash cart or help me to do the ASIC chips that I needed for Demon Front.
And they even have, you kind of thought that maybe it's somebody from the actual factory, like they have hologram stickers on them, and all of the exact matching, like
it's got to be somebody, either somebody who knew someone that worked at the factory or someone who worked for the R&D department at IGS. It had to be, because there's no PGM dev kit out there. You can't just download the software and start making your own games. It doesn't exist. I've emailed IGS about that and asked them, do you still have dev kits, etc., etc. Oop. Okay, that's...
Yeah, I plugged it back in. I've got it now, I think. Oh, something's still off here. Maybe I need to do it again. It's still a little wonky.
Yeah, the plastics I don't think are 100% original. You just have to click it in and it should go in, and then it'll boot to the title menu.
Let me just play around with it a little here.
Yeah, there we go. So yes, if you look at that down the bottom, you can see all the data about the game, what it was based off, etc., etc. So this is basically Knights of Valour. So it's a which one is it? It's one of the Knights of Valour. Okay, that's playing up a little bit there. Unless is that playing up, or is that the screen res?
No, it's I need to plug it back in again, I think.
It does happen. These PGM,
this is how arcade streams go, by the way.
Yeah,
every single time.
They are very, very touchy on their carts. That's why I always recommend is, when you get a cart in, clean it, and then put it back in. But yeah, the plastics aren't. I don't know if I don't think the plastics are original. I think they're a little bit cheaper plastics, and they're being done. It's definitely original. So someone from the factory had to do it. This is not playing game, is it?
I got it. I got it now. You'll see it eventually. I just had to replug it in a few times.
Yeah, it's just especially the hack carts, because the boards are not original. They're not. The dimensions are a little bit out, but you should be able to get it.
Wow, so I've got Knights of Valour now. This is one of the games I really wanted.
Yeah, well, that's
awesome.
One of the reasons I sent it is not just because it is a hack cart and it's a little bit different. It is actually, you can still play it. The game can still be played. The only thing the main difference is that the Street Fighter characters are in there. So you've lost a couple of the characters to play, but it is still Knights of Valour. You can still play it.
Yeah.
And
oh wow! Oh holy crap! I'm at the character menu now. Yeah, you can be M. Bison. You can be everybody. You can be Chun-Li. I'll be Chun-Li. That's awesome.
It's really
Whoa,
good.
this
it's
is
a
sweet.
really good hack. Like it had to have been someone from the factory or the R&D. They had to have done it because it's just so smooth. It works. It's not clunky. You know, you get games that are Chinese copies or knocks off,
Yeah.
and the graphics are just crap, and they're not quite right. And you can tell that, like how the and I'm not paying it out. The 161 in 1.
Yeah, those are hacky hacks.
Yeah, the Neo Geo multi-cart, multi-games cart that you can get. Like it runs, but some of the games are just really bad.
Yeah, anything with a plus byte is pretty much junk for the most part. On the 161. Oh,
Yes.
this is sweet.
So with the hack carts, this is the Street Fighter hack cart, as we've discussed. There is more than. Yeah, see, there we go. See, there's some of the Street Fighter.
I remember playing this in MAME a long time ago. This is awesome. Thanks for sending me this.
Is it this exact version that you played?
No, I played the original one. I mean.
Okay. Because I was going to say this.
I've never seen the hat cart. Yeah.
This wasn't originally, and it's still not in MAME yet. I haven't been able to get it completely added yet. Still working on it. I'm sure I'll get there, but it's.
I was a little shocked by the response from MAME when we contacted them, because I thought they would just be like, "Oh wow, thank you," because we sent them. You sent me the ROMs, and then I sent them to my guy in MAME, and then they kept on asking for more and more stuff. They're like, "Oh, give a full description of the differences between the game, a picture of the blah blah blah, a picture of blah blah blah." It's like, come on, just take the freaking ROMs.
Yeah,
that's kind of how I felt.
I'm not sure what happened there. I ended up contacting a couple of different other guys who had links to MAME, and some of the other stuff that was not so. I don't know if it's because it's a hack. That's why they're so resistant to it. But there's games where they're just a different version. Like the game's already in MAME, but I found ROMs that are a different revision, and they got different bug fixes and all that sort of thing inside them. I've been able to get them fairly easily into MAME now, and have added quite a few into MAME.
That's cool. I mean, well, they have all the hacky stuff for Neo Geo in there. You would think they would be all over this.
Yeah,
I mean, a lot of people would prefer this to the original one, actually, just because it has Street Fighter characters.
Yeah, I mean, there's actually, with the hack carts, there's actually a couple of different versions. This is the Street Fighter one, as you can see. There's also
a King of Fighters.
Yeah, King of Fighters. There's a King of Fighters.
That'd be cool too.
That's done, and actually on the PGM 2, there is actually a Neo Geo the game I've forgotten
King of Fighters 98 or
yeah, King of Fighters 98.
Or was it 98?
Yeah,
that would be awesome too. I love that game.
On the PGM 2, which is really really funny because it's obviously SNK did it, so that's a sort of a weird little crossover.
So that's unofficial then?
No, it's official.
Oh, it is.
Yeah, very much official. It's an official cart, but it was done by SNK, and it's like okay, why?
Well, there was weird stuff going on. Like you had SVC versus SNK on the Neo Geo, and you're like, what's the Capcom stuff doing on the Neo Geo, or Capcom versus Neo Geo? SVC.
Capcom and Neo Geo did a lot of titles like that. Somebody versus something. Like Capcom versus the world, basically. They did a lot of those, especially very late in the Neo Geo's life. Because that's when the single board Neo Geos came out, or what I like to call zero slots, which is actually a term I've used quite a bit. But
that's a good one.
Slots, single boards, zero slots, basically the same thing. And that's when they did all of the Capcom versus me, Capcom versus you, all those different and there's heaps, because you've got CPS 1 stuff, you've got CPS 2 stuff. There's quite a few different versions of it. But yeah,
and that just goes to show too that it wasn't. I mean, if it was built as a Neo Geo clone or whatever, you wouldn't have King of Fighters 98 coming in. I mean, this was just the arcade world, the way things worked back then. Everybody was going to these modular systems because it just made sense financially.
Well,
you could set up an arcade with 100 PGM motherboards in it, and then rotate all your hat carts and all that kind of stuff around in it. without spending a fortune.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest misconceptions about the PGM is people just call it a Neo Geo wannabe, and it's totally not. Like it's totally completely different. And it's sad because a lot of people go, "Oh, it's just a wannabe." You know, I don't want to get into this. I don't even want to look at it because it's just a one. And it detracts from the actual.
It's really sad.
And it runs well. I mean, if you look at the video, which obviously everybody is, the sprites have been really well done. Like it's
extremely high quality.
It's really, really smooth. And to do
Oriental Legends is like watching a cartoon, like a Saturday morning cartoon or something. Everything is so detailed.
They must have, maybe they extracted the graphics from like a CPS 1 or a CPS 2 and used them. Because I wouldn't think they would redraw absolutely everything for the PGM, so I'm not sure where they got it from. I will send you one day the King of Fighters one. Hack card as well. It's just I'm running. I think I've only got 2 of them, so I'm
only if you're okay parting with this stuff.
Yeah, no, it's all good. It's all good. It's better to get it out there and play it. And as you can see, it is King of Fighters, but it's special because it has the Street Fighter people, and Street Fighter is huge. That's probably the biggest game. Do you have Street Fighter at the arcade? Do you have Street Fighter this at the arcade? Do you have Hyper Fighting? Championship Edition. Blah blah blah. So it's a really really common game that most people know about. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you. This is awesome. I'll do a stream featuring this one for sure. See if I can. I think it's like a 3-hour game, isn't it? If you play it start to finish.
Yeah, it's quite long. It really is quite long.
That'd be a good one.
And actually, there's quite a few games that are like that. The King of Fire, Road of the Sword, the Gladiator. That's definitely one that will take. I think that's longer than 3 hours.
Awesome.
I think it's a really really long game.
So people would be paying like $30-$40 to finish that in an arcade if you wanted to play the whole thing, probably.
Yeah. Well, and the rest. If you're putting $2 coins in the machines, it doesn't take long before you get $40 or $50 going. That's one of the cool things about having the free play arcade is that people can just pay the entry fee and then they go.
Oh yeah, I love that.
They can play whatever they want, and it's actually quite funny because what you get a lot of people, they go in and then they kept pressing the credit button and they put like 20 credits in it, and then the
machine stays on when they're done.
Yeah, and then they walk away, and it's like if you're putting coins in it, you'd never do that because you have to pay for every single credit that you use. So yeah, but no, this is one.
I have this weird thing where I'm still thinking like I was in like 1996 when I do that, because I'll be like, ooh, I want to go play Time Crisis because it's free, and that used to be like a 75-cent game or whatever, But it's like it doesn't really matter if you're just paying your $10 for the day or whatever. You can play whatever you want.
Yeah,
but I still see like Rampage was my 25-cent game back then. It's like, oh, I don't want to play that because that was a cheap game.
Yeah, no, there's there we go. You change your character.
Yeah, I got Guile here.
Yeah, so you can do that. But if you have a look at the graphics, they're still really well done. It doesn't jump around. It.
It's better. I mean, I was playing Double Dragon 3 last night, and I had gone from PGM to Double Dragon 3, and Double Dragon 3 just looks like such crap when you go from a game like this to it. It's so choppy, and there's so much slowdown, and there's so little animation in the sprites.
I'm actually surprised that people haven't done. Well, I assume somebody's done some overclocking of the Double Dragon boards.
It's the first thing people look into when they get it, like me. But nobody's ever pulled it off, I don't think.
As far as I know, I'm pretty sure one of the processors on there, is a protected chip. And it's not just an off-the-shelf, it's got code inside it. I'm pretty sure that's one of the Double Dragons does, or one of the CPUs on it. Because I know I had a board many, many years ago, and it had an error when it does the startup tests. And yeah, I found out that it was a CPU that had extra code inside and you couldn't just replace it. So maybe that's why they can't be overclocked. I do have I've got a bootleg Double Dragon board here that I was given from actually the guy who actually, that's another world record that we have. The guy for the world record of Double Dragon is at the arcade as well, and he's one of our regulars as well. So that's another game that we've
awesome.
got the world record on. So
Jotego, who does FPGA stuff for Mr. Arcade Games, he's going to take on Double Dragon, and that was my question to him. I said, can you get rid of when you make your core, can you put an option in, to remove the sprite limit or to overclock it? And he said he's going to do that. So
yeah, well,
that will be cool.
That should work really, really well. I mean, I wish it's probably one thing.
I'm selling my arcade board, actually. I want to get this thing out of here. It's just it's not enjoyable to me, really, with all that.
Yeah, it's one of the areas I'd like to get a little bit more into, and I think it's the way forward for a lot of making not necessarily a PGM flash card, because obviously that's the ultimate goal, but just making other boards for Fluffy's boards, so that you can actually run the
like
ASIC
an add-on,
because that's really what you want. If you had that, then you could use these boards for basically any game. And I think that would be really, really cool. I know Fluffy's mentioned it, that because at the moment they only use the 32 megabit 27C 3-to-2 chip, which is only 32 megabit. The chips on real carts are generally 64 megabit chips, and at the moment, obviously, you can't put them in his cartridges. But he has talked about there's a very few 5-volt 64 megabit chips that exist. One's made by Intel. They're rare. I do have quite a few of them here, but they do exist. And he's talked about doing a 64 meg version of his board as well for some of the games that are a bit larger. I also need to put a list together of possible games that could be used on his boards as well. Plus, I was going to make a list of the ASIC games as well, so that for people to understand a little bit more about why we can't do this or what this does, and etc., a bit more of the background. It's on my to-do list, and I think it's very well needed, because the questions do come up a lot, and especially with Fluffy's boards.
There's no real list of what games work with Fluffy's boards or which ones don't. That would be good.
They were originally done for just the 3 cave shooters, and that's all he really talks about, and that's fine. I mean, he's done an absolutely brilliant job.
And he even has like this. You can switch on. Is it Katsui?
Katsui, yeah, Katsui.
You can switch between arranged mode or arcade version, which is really cool.
Yeah, you could do that at the moment on the test cart that I've got. So I've got. See, these are his board. These are Fluffy's boards that are obviously not populated. These are a little bit newer. These are the original ones that he made, and as you can see, I populated them with the sockets and all the gear in them. But yeah, there's a set of jumpers on there, and you can switch between the 2 different versions of Katsui, without a problem. Or you mount a switch on it externally, so that you can just switch
that's what I've seen people doing.
Yeah, so that's a really common thing. You can do that, but that's what Fluffy's boards were designed to do. That was his goal, was to make PCBs so you didn't have to kill a real cart in order to do it. That was the main thing, and then running 5-volt only chips, so that you weren't damaging any 3.3 I/O driving. And he succeeded. I mean, they worked really well. I mean, I was not shocked, but I was. It only took him a couple of months to do the boards, and they work. You plug them in, do all the ROMs, and I mean, okay, there were a few teething problems, but they've been so well done, and he's actually sold. He did the first. It's either a run of 100 or a run of 200, and that's on the arcade forums. And I believe he's going to do another run.
Yeah, he sold out that first 100, which already saves 100 games right there.
Yeah, well, I've ordered quite a few, obviously, but if you're interested in that, or even if you're just curious, Fluffy's the guy to talk about it, and most of the stuff is in the forum, so you can actually read it. In Arcade Projects, there is actually a forum now just for the PGM 1, 2, and 3. So if you pop into that group, you'll be able to read about Fluffy's boards, etc., etc. But yeah, they were originally designed just for the 3 cave shooters, which they run absolutely perfectly. and I was really happy because some of the boards, the PGM cart PCBs that I scan and put on my website, he used quite a few of those images to actually trace the tracks around to actually help him make the cartridges. So I was really, really happy with that because, it's been a huge plus. We've now got boards that we can almost do whatever we want with them and that work, that are well built, well designed. If you've got an EEPROM programmer or you've got a friend who's got one, you can build the 3 cave shooters. They're not hard. The EEPROMs, you can get them on eBay. They're cheap. They don't have to be brand new. EEPROMs.
There's even that site that will burn them for you if you send them the files or whatever.
Yeah, the Buy IC Now will do it for you. The only thing I'm a little bit cautious about doing the cave shooters is you might get one chip wrong, and if you tell them to do the wrong file, you've got a set that doesn't work, and it's like, well, which chip is it? So, like, if you're actually doing them yourself, or you've got a friend who's got a programmer, and there are programmers out. I'm sure there's a programmer out there that was
I got
made in Canada. Is it a G4 or G3X or something?
Yeah, there was a really good, highly recommended one that I got for about $80 that I sent to Brazil to Victor Valela for Super Nintendo stuff that basically did everything.
Yeah, so it is a little bit like if you've got I've got a couple of mates who want the cave shooters, and because I've got an EEPROM programmer, I've had one for many years. Mine's quite expensive, so I don't recommend that you get the one that I have unless you're doing a lot of arcade boards or you're trying to run an arcade. And funnily enough, that's what I work as, so that worked out really well. And I use it all the time. Mask
yeah, I have one coming from Undammed to send me a really nice older one. And I just have this huge backlog of chips I need to burn just to convert things from Japanese to American and stuff like that.
Yeah,
it'll be really useful.
As long as it either has an adapter for 42-pin EEPROMs, or it has 42 pins, or 44 or 48. The one I've got is 48, so I can just pop the 32 megabit EEPROMs in. And
those adapters are really cheap now, too.
Yeah, they are.
For some of the more popular boards.
The EEPROMs, like, there's a guy who I've been buying them from on eBay, and I think he does... I think it's like $12 for 10 chips.
Oh, nice, yeah.
And they're 100 nanoseconds, so they're fine. The speed's all good. That's another little, not a cheat, but a little thing to know is with EEPROMs, they do slow down with age. So it's always better to get a slightly faster chip because they do slow down with age.
So I'm unboxing another cart here. This one, it's Photo Y2K. Is that a puzzle one?
It's it's also called Same. So this should be the one where you've got...
If you want to talk about IGS or something.
Yeah, well, we talked earlier how I've got different videos and stuff about the PGM related sort of things, and also, just arcade related stuff. So if you do have questions and stuff like that, you can contact me through obviously my website, etc., and through YouTube and that sort of thing. But a lot of questions are answered in the videos that I do. I also, if people have, if enough people ask me a question about the PGM and, I need to make another video, that's all cool too. I'm very into, trying to get stuff done that, that people really want to watch and to know about. But yeah, the PGM, I've got which motherboard to buy, what carts to buy. I want to do one probably with the games. The games aren't very well. There are some good videos, but nothing really good. Like nothing like SmokeMonster does. And I think with like the capture card that he's got and doing it straight into the computer and recording that sort of thing, I think that would look really good for a lot of these games. Plus, it would give people, if you show something in high quality, people go, oh wow, is this what this produces? If you do it in low quality, they just go, oh yeah, it's just another game. And people can ignore it. But no, it's a cool system. We've shown off quite a few games tonight, which is pretty cool. But yeah, there's meant to be around 30 titles, but there's more than that. And then you've got your different regions. The other thing, just cover it just a little bit. The motherboards and the cartridges are not region locked. There's no region locking, so you can plug any game into any motherboard and it will run. So you don't have to worry about region locks at all, because that's there are a lot of systems that do have that. Plus, with the battery on board leaking, you don't need a battery on board for the motherboard to run. So cutting it off, desoldering it, that's all cool. I do cover that in one of my videos as well, but just so that everybody knows, you can get rid of the battery, and it doesn't stop the board from booting. It runs this. It doesn't need the battery. Just get rid of it and save yourself the hassle of having to repair the board later. So
I just threw mine away. Well, I kept the battery because it actually still had a perfect charge, but I took it out of the system, following your advice.
Yeah,
because I don't need any of that bookkeeping stuff anyways. I mean, people are going to want... I know people's natural tendency is going to be like, oh, but I want to preserve the battery, but really, it doesn't do anything for PGM, so...
No, it just does the bookkeeping, basically. I'm pretty sure most games don't even use the area for saving high scores. I know there was... I can't remember if it's one of the cave conversions or it's a different game, and you put, I think it's dip 8. If you turn dip 8 on this one game, I think it does save the scores. But that's the only one I know about. I don't know about any other games saving scores or doing that. Definitely Demon Front doesn't, or I can't get it to do it, because I know I did end up doing Demon Front at work. So basically, instead of soldering the battery onto the PCB, I put leads on it and just ran it around so that it was completely away. So if it does decide to pass out, it won't kill anything because it's not on the board anymore. But I've never been able to get to save a score with that. I don't think it does unless I'm missing something. So yeah.
So I just pulled out a game that has like a beetle on the cover and a butterfly.
Beetle. I'll
pop it in here.
Which one's that? Is that another one?
Okay.
It's hard to remember every single cart just because there's so many different versions of it, which makes it hard to remember which is which. But yeah, I'm pretty sure it's the same game, so it's a similar type game. I don't think it's as
looks a bit safer.
Yeah, it's not. I don't think that's one of the ones with a little bit more of an adult content. I think that one's pretty okay. The other thing people may have noticed is the cartridges, the cases themselves. The early stuff's is non-transparent red, but the later stuff is transparent.
Yeah, this one, it looks like it's a solid non-transparent.
Or, putting LEDs in stuff and doing all that sort of thing. The PGM, you can totally do that because there's enough space in there to put LEDs. Plus, most of the games are the red clear cases. So yeah,
that would be. Can you light up the? Is there? Yeah, I guess you could just pull it from the 12-volt line, couldn't you, and put some LEDs inside the carts. I probably won't do that. But that would be kind of cool.
Not on the 12-volt. The 12-volt doesn't go to the cartridges. It's just for the sound amplifier. Yeah, it's just for the sound amplifier. So +5. Yeah, you can definitely get +5s in the cartridge. That's not a problem. It's there. It's easy to find. There's two. Oh, well, you would have seen it when you opened your cart. There's the main capacitors down near the edge. That's 5 volts there. So it's pretty easy to get 5 volts. And if you want to run LEDs around and all that sort of thing. So yeah. So this is like same. Where I'm pretty sure you do the differences between the two pictures, but I think this one's a little bit more G-rated. But yeah, you can see the little.
It looks like G-rated, but like it could go freaky or something if I get to it further.
Again, I've never finished this game, so I mean, it's quite possibly that it could.
That would be awesome if it did, because it's totally selling itself as a kids game from that attract sequence.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Like it looks, pretty harmless, and oh, here we go. Well, that didn't last very long, did it? So yes, obviously this one must do as well. It's just I haven't probably played it enough. I've never noticed it. But yeah, there's a little spidery guy that tells you when to go, and then you've got the little beetle up the top that eats the time chart. So you're popping the same thing. Differences between the two pictures, and obviously it's another cartridge, so it's a different game, different images, etc., etc. But there is a couple like this, definitely, and. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I suppose we'll soon find out whether, how quickly it gets a little bit more adult. But yeah, again, another funny card to play. This one isn't super common. It's probably in the middle. And the reason I know that, I've only got probably 3 or 4 of them cards, and that's it. That's all I've got. So generally, something if I've only got a couple, then it's usually quite uncommon. So yeah, but no, you can get. I don't know whether you're going to do. You may do another video on on buying motherboards and carts, and where to get good deals and all that sort of thing. But if they're definitely out there, you can definitely get a running system plus a cart for like $100 to probably $130, $140. So so it's not expensive.
No, it just seems like a great value for how powerful it is, to me at least. Because usually, I mean, if you're talking $100 arcade games, it's usually kind of, if you're buying them working, it's kind of the bottom of the barrel.
Well,
you don't typically jump in with something as high of quality as this.
There's not a lot of arcade stuff, like really high quality stuff you can buy for $100. I mean,
no,
I know for the just to go back to the Neo Geo, just because that's easy, and I've bought quite a few carts. The Metal Slug series for the Neo Geo, I've paid what $300-400, for some of the Metal Slug cartridges. And that's huge. Like, that's a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure there's probably people out there who are going, oh, I don't know if I want to spend that sort of money. What happens if I don't like the games? That sort of thing. But you can spend stupid money on Neo Geo carts. Even for, for the MVS is what we're talking about. I mean, the AES stuff is already stupidly expensive, but the MVS, some of it, like there's one. I think it's called Magician Lord. It's a rare Neo
that was
Geo.
the pack-in originally for the.
Yeah, they didn't end up making too many of them, and it became it's not super rare, but it's I know I looked it up. It wasn't too long ago. There's another game called Cyberlip, which wasn't a launch title. I think it came a little bit after the launch. But it goes for stupid money now as well. Definitely the English version of the carts definitely go for like $500, $600, $700, which for a beginner is a lot of money. I mean, you can buy this. The motherboards are really, really reliable. I've not had any there's no major flaws. With the motherboards, other than the batteries and stuff like that. But in my buying guides, I say to buy the Rev 9 or newer, which shouldn't have any battery issues. So you can, if you buy a Rev 9 or newer, you won't have any problems with the battery, because it's, you just.
And if you buy it known working too, you probably know it doesn't have any battery damage for the most part.
Yeah, for the
and you can fix it.
Yeah, for the damaged boards, if you are into tinkering and repairing boards, gems. There's 2 or 3 different mods that basically is all you need to do, and most boards that the batteries leaked out on can be fixed that way. So I do have a video on that. So if you're into tinkering and you want to get a board fairly cheap, a little bit of a story. My first PGM that I bought, it was $5 Australian, so it was like $2 US. I bought it years and years and years ago. I didn't really know what it was. I'd seen it before, but never really looked into it. Bought the board, didn't work. The battery had just gone everywhere. It didn't work, and I spent, I think it was like 3 or 4 months and finally got it to run. And I was so happy that I'd finally got it to run. And that was when I started with the PGM, and I fell in love with it, and it runs really well, and it is a really great system, and it's not expensive, and I think that's one of the cool things, because a lot of stuff that's uncommon or on the little bit of a rare side in arcade world is usually really, really, really expensive.
Yeah, and powerful too. The more power you get, it seems like the prices go way up, and you get so much bang for your buck out of the PGM.
That's the thing, like I really, like I'm not going to put a guarantee that I guarantee that every single person who buys a PGM is going to love it, because there's obviously going to be some people that won't like something, but it is a really cool system. It's not that expensive, and most people have never heard of it, so that's another rarity about the PGM, is that most arcade gear that you go and buy or stuff that you know about, it's already known, the games are dumped, they're common, everybody knows about it, knows this game for it, played this, played that. But with the PGM, most people have never played it, never done anything. That's a sealed, that's another sealed kit.
Yeah, thank you. This is a third brand new PGM game I've opened tonight. Unbelievable.
I think this is Dragon World 2001. I think, from memory.
Mm-hmm.
You'll
That's
see.
What it looks like.
It has 2000. It should have 2001 written on the on the label. So that's the last Dragon World that was written for the PGM. That was the last cart that they did for that series.
Cool.
So you've got 2, and you've got 3, and now you've got 2001, which is obviously 4. But they called it 2001, so obviously it was released around 2001. So it was one of the last carts released for the system. Never stick those stickers onto anything ever, but they're really cool to have. I really enjoy getting the little extra bonuses that that you can get, and I forgot to send it. I knew I forgot to do something today. I had some other stuff which I haven't actually talked to you about yet, that I'm also sending to you, and I could have just given it away if I had said, but I've got some artwork for one of the games I'm going to be sending, and I've got to remind myself to find it, because I've got a full banner of some of them, like original, never used, in plastic, and I've got a couple for this one game, and I know it's a game that you'd like, so I'll have to try and find where it is. So I won't give away what that game is yet, or else that'll give away. But it's a cool game, and I'm sure you'd like to play it.
Awesome, thank you so much. I really appreciate this. And I mean, like, my arcade collection just exploded. I mean, like, I said this when I was restoring, like, when I was recapping those carts, people are like, oh, why are you recapping cartridges? It's kind of crazy. I'm like, well, I treat every single PGM cartridge the same way as getting a whole new game. To me, it's that important. And getting a new arcade game, to me, the first thing I do is I recap them. I clean them up really nicely. I find a box for them and get some ESD safe bubble wrap and everything and get them into my lineup. And I'm doing the same thing with these PGM games one by one, because I really do consider every cartridge to be, Double Dragon. It's a double gigantic system, and it was a big pain in the butt, and I cleaned the heck out of it, spent a week on it, and I like these PGM games way more than that. So, like, cleaning them up and recapping them, it just seems like the right thing to do for them.
It definitely is. I mean, the motherboards have to be recapped, and that's one thing I haven't announced. I think it's in some of my videos, maybe, but I'm going to do more of a helping the PGM community or helping new people get into the PGM. I'm going to sell some motherboards that I've recapped. Probably also have the stereo mod, which I'm yet to finalize. And obviously any battery damage has been fixed, but most of them I'm going to try and make them the Rev 14s, which never have any battery damage because they had the coin cell. So I'm going to be selling some of those. I'll probably start at a few, like maybe 5 or 6 to start with, and just see what the interest is in the community. But that is one thing.
That would be awesome for people to buy them. already
and they'll be all ready to go.
recapped, stereo modded from you.
Yeah.
Would be cool.
And that will help me with my website, getting more cartridges to also help the community as well. But yeah, they'll be ready to rock and roll. No messing around. Nothing to do with the batteries. All good. Stereo mod, which obviously I've got to finish that. But yeah, completely recapped with high quality caps. So there's no skimping on any of that stuff as well. So when it comes to recapping, people probably think, oh, why are you doing that? Why are you doing a cartridge for? But the same thing still applies. They still do the same job. Caps do the same job. They still...
Yeah, and the PGM caps, they're all really good, actually. They all tested fine. But, the ESR was kind of high on a few of them. And I can put... I'm replacing generic caps with Panasonic or Nishikon or Rubicon that are rated for 105 degrees for 5 to 10,000 hours. Though it's basically making the cart indestructible at this point. Why not? You have hundreds of these on hand anyways. You might as well do it. That's how I feel.
Yeah, it is doable. If you think about it, because if you think about how old the cartridges are, so the cartridge you've got now was released in 2001. Okay, so it's 18 years old. So the caps in it are already 18 years old. You look at the recapping of chassis, which is highly important. You've got the same thing, but these are even older, 20, 30 years. So it is worth doing, especially if you've got the gear to do it. If you've got the gear to do it, great. If you don't, find a friend or someone who does have the gear.
I enjoy recapping. I don't know, for you it probably feels like work, but for me it's it's making something mine. That's how I feel. So I've got a new arcade game that came in that I fixed or whatever. I recap it and then it just feels like brand new,
I enjoy it because most of the time you're repairing something. So you're taking something that doesn't work or is out of spec, and that's another thing is that a lot of people go, oh, the chassis works, I plug it in, it works, but you may not be able to adjust it properly, or the geometry's out, or it's got pin cushion, or it just looks terrible. So it is a huge thing to bring stuff back to spec. Plus it's enjoyable because you're taking something that doesn't work and fixing it, and obviously I get a lot of enjoyment out of that, and obviously you do as well. So for me it's good, and then with all the bad caps that you pull out and they're absolutely terrible, it's like and
you and I both do that thing where I do a shotgun recap of everything just because I like doing it. But I always, even though I'm replacing them all, I'll put them every single one on the ESR meter and just see where they were. And you do that too, I think.
Yeah,
and
I do.
It's kind of crazy. Most of them are fine, but 1 in 10 or 1 in 20 caps are off, and 1 in 100 is way off. The board wasn't working right with that on there.
Yeah. No, it is a good feeling to do recapping. I'm just very lucky at work because I have got so many different caps. Recapping's not a problem. I think that's why people get a little bit nervous about recapping is just because the sheer number of some caps on some stuff, like with the chassis and stuff. You can have 20, 30 different caps. And I think people get a little bit cautious about it is when you start to get to multi-layer boards, and that's where people really struggle because you really need a good desoldering gun, which I'm pretty sure you've got an older Hacko one.
I use a Hacko knockoff, an Aweiwei 474 A++. Yeah, and then I replaced all of the filters and everything in it with Hacko stuff.
Yeah, no, I've got the... I talk about it in my video. I've got the latest one, the FR, I think it's 201 or 202 or 301, 302, and it's an absolute dream to use. It is so well made. Too, yeah. It works so well. It works so well that I have to have one for home. I'm going to have to buy one because they just work so well, and it makes recapping especially multi-layer boards. And do mods to multi-layer boards. It is so handy to do.
Yeah, it's the thing that I recommend to people, anybody who wants to do serious... if you have a bunch of consoles, you should get a desoldering station. It's the best investment. If you think of the time that it saves you, compared to braid or a solder sucker. Wouldn't you kind of agree with that? Like it's just such a dream to use them compared to doing it the old way.
You be kidding me, right?
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it is a good way to do it. I recommend. Sorry.
Well, clearly, I've got competition.
Okay.
I've got Esquiluda going in here. So now we're getting to the real, like, to me, the gems of the PGM. These shoot 'em ups. Esquiluda, Katsui, and Dodonpachi Daiojo. They're actually all on the Xbox 360. That's how I always played them. But, I mean, playing them on real hardware is just insane to think that I own these games. I mean, because cave games are outrageous, and games of this power are outrageous, too.
Yeah, that's was one of the biggest stumbling blocks for the cave shooters is they were just so and they still are. If you're going out and if you want to buy the original boards, you're looking at more than $1,000 minimum. I've seen them up around the $3,000 mark. So it's you can pay a lot of money. So being able to get these cave games now through Fluffy's PCBs, which I've shown, the red ones, being able to do it through that is just absolutely great because you don't have to spend $300-400. And I think actually the pricing of I'm hoping the pricing of the cart conversions and obviously the boards, because someone's going to copy Fluffy's boards and obviously make them out of China. So I'm assuming that the market's probably going to get a little bit cheaper, I would hope, for the original.
But that's cool. I mean, I assume that's what Fluffy kind of wants. I mean, if it's a preservation project, really, and he can't be making much money off the actual PCBs. So even if they do this in China, it's kind of cool that you're saving the actual carts.
That's the biggest thing, and that's the most useful thing is that you're not using donor carts anymore. The only thing that's left to get around
the shell.
Yeah, exactly, is the shells. Where do you get shells from? What do you do with a shell?
Mm-hmm.
And at the moment, most people, or the way I'm recommending it, is that people get the really common cheap carts. So like your Dragon World 2, Dragon World 3, they're usually pretty easy to get and they're usually fairly cheap. Just get some of those. And I actually sent a whole heap to Fluffy a while back so that he had a whole heap of shells that he could use. So that helped him out just to say thanks for making the boards, because the boards are,
that's cool. You sent him like 10 boards or something? 10 games, actually.
10 or 12 carts. I stripped out all the boards, so they were just plastic, so they were a bit lighter. But no, I sent him those and he's used them, and he was really happy with that. And I was glad I was able to do something to say thank you about the boards. So
yeah, that's awesome. And I assume, eventually someone will probably make like either a plexiglass solution or 3D printed shell, but that would be kind of expensive, but it would be cool if somebody could make a full repro.
The only not really disappointing point, but one of the points is at the moment I'm pretty sure buying a cheap cart and using its case, I know that's
not cheaper than a 3D print.
Yeah, is cheaper than like if you were gonna get them done to make them cheap enough, that it was worth to buy. Even if it was the same price as a cheap cart, that would be fine. But yeah, you'd have to get probably 3D molds made up, use injection molding or something to that effect.
Yeah, we really need injection molded shell probably in the end, but that's like $10,000 or something for somebody to do, I'm guessing.
It's a lot of money. You've got not just the design to draw, but then you've got to actually get the molds made. You're probably going to need...
And get it right.
You're going to need at least 2 molds, probably 3, because you've got the cart top and bottom, because the top and bottom are different. So you'd have to have those 2, and then there's a spacer bar that goes in between the 2 PCBs, and that's another plastic part. So there's 3 different plastic parts. I'm assuming you'd either have to do 2 or 3 actual molds to do it. But people have done it. There was a new cases for the Amigas was done up on a Kickstarter project, and they did exactly that. They designed new plastic.
We could probably do a Kickstarter for PGM stuff. Like, the people who are into PGM are really into it. I'd throw $100 towards a Kickstarter for a shell if somebody were going to do that.
Oh, I think, yeah, I would too, but I'm not sure who. Like, I mean, I can donate games or carts, you know, to anybody who's, you know, if there's somebody out there or somebody watching this who thinks, oh yeah, you know, I'm good at 3D drawing and you know, that sort of thing. I mean, I definitely donate some carts towards it, so that you've actually got something to model off. That's, you know, I wouldn't have a problem doing that. Because I think that's the ultimate way of doing it, is to be able to make your own plastic carts. Then you get the boards, and then you basically everything's kosher, and you know the prices of Demon Front will come down because they're no longer being used as donors, which is, you know, because at the moment they're just, Demon Front's way too expensive.
It's so crazy. It's just been a couple years since it went nuts, the price. Because I remember the last time I looked, I mean, it was around 100, and I don't know why I didn't buy it back then, but I think I was waiting. See, I got my PGM motherboard back when there was Darksoft had said maybe one day I'll do a PGM multi-cart, and so I just grabbed a really cheap, I mean they were dirt cheap back then, motherboard, and then I didn't really have any games for it just up until I started talking to you recently.
Yeah.
And then I picked up these first 4 games just like a few months ago.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's I mean, a multi would be really, really cool, and there's no getting away with that. But then you're still left with the same question. You're going to have to make plastics. I mean, if you're selling a multi board, you know, like the you know, like all the other flash cartridges you get for different systems, you know, they all come with a case, and you know they're a complete unit. You plug it in, and you know everything's cool. So if someone was going to do that, you'd have to get plastics made somehow. Because otherwise you couldn't really sell it. You'd have to sell it to enthusiasts to get their own carts. So yeah, I think it's doable. You know, I it's not, the plastics aren't too bad. You know, I mean, I'm pretty sure they were probably injection molded to start with, and you know, like as I said, you know, I don't have a problem sending some people carts if they want to draw them up. You know,
I wonder if I could ask Collingal if he would be up for that. I could see. Although, like you said, you're still going to have, in the end, it might still be cheaper just to buy the actual real cart than having a 3D print. Because this is going to be a $50, $60 print, I imagine, if you were getting it through, like, Shapeways or something.
Yeah, I really think probably at the moment, it's cheaper just to buy a common cart and just basically take the boards out and repurpose it. Because, I think a 3D print, you've got the bottom and the top, which are probably where all the plastic's going to be, and I would have thought it would be like maybe $50 or $60 for each side, or something like that, because there's a lot of plastic. Some of the integrated features in the cart don't necessarily have to be there. Like with the vents, you could make the vents go from one side to the other. They don't need to be curved. You could make the cartridges cartridge shells a lot more simplified. And I think
I wonder if you could make them a little better for heat maintenance too, because they do get pretty warm.
Yeah, they do. They do get warm, especially with the ones that have got the ASIC chips in them. They actually do get quite warm, because the ASIC does get quite warm. And that's what I was like, if I was going to send a case to somebody to draw up or whatnot, I was going to say, hey, you know, you can make these vents go the whole way of the cartridge, instead of doing the scalloping that they've got at each edge. And that would help with, you know, keeping the carts cooler and make the cart a lot easier and cheaper to make. I think if you bought enough of them, you could probably get a good price, but I think you probably have to get a lot made anyway. But but it has that. I mean, you look at the shock cases for the Neo Geo carts. You know, they didn't exist, and a guy made them and then sells them. But the last time I looked, they weren't exactly cheap though. But the principle's there. People have done it. Thing. You know, taken it off, you know, used Kickstarter or whatever, and made it a reality. So I think it's definitely doable. I suppose you just need to get someone who's, you know, probably a little bit more passionate about PGM and wants to help the community as well. Not just, you know, I can do drawing and I'll draw it up for you. Someone who's got a bit more of a passion about it. I think you probably need somebody like that. And there's heaps of those people out in the arcade field. I mean, that's one of the cool things, is that a lot of people who are into arcade gear are very passionate about it. and yeah, there is a lot of people out there,
Man,
and the amount of sprites on the screens for this stuff is just unreal.
I know, this
Like
is insane.
It's just there's so many bombs. Like it just shows you how powerful the system is, and I think it's only got. I think there's only 1 megabit of SRAM used for VRAM for the display chip. It hasn't got a lot of memory attached.
Just super
to it.
tweaked.
But it does run quite quick. I think it's around 33 to 40 meg, the video processor for the video. But it also has a palette RAM as well. So it's got your video RAM and palette RAM as well. And it runs really quick. Like I think the RAM's like, I think it's 10 or 12 nanoseconds. So it's
Wow.
really going
Man.
using the SRAM quite quickly. So yeah.
This game is like a roller. All three cave shooters are like a roller coaster ride that you're on. I mean, you have to just.
Well, they did
Streaming them is not a great idea. It's like you got to turn half your brain off.
They didn't skimp on anything. That was something they definitely went in. They went in and said, hey, we want to create some good shooters, which they're known for. And, PGM probably. That's the only little story I don't know is how Cave became.
That's what I was wondering. How they came to PGM hardware.
Yeah, it's there may be info out somewhere, but I've never read any of it. It probably is out there somewhere because they were with a different company called Atlas. And Atlas did a lot of their boards, and that's a little hint. If you want to make your own cave boards, Atlas released their own games on the same hardware, so you can actually convert some of the earlier cave boards, the Atlas ones, into the cave boards. So that's another little thing. But I don't know if I listened to one of your videos. There was someone doing an FPGA on the. Is it on the Mister?
Yeah. They're making. Well, they did. They have a Cave Generation 1 FPGA, and apparently it's up and running with Dodonpachi already.
Yeah, well, that's.
And they're bringing it to Mister now, and it's totally the first game is done now. So, and they're gonna do all the Cave first gen games on it, which is gonna be killer.
That'd be really cool.
It's gonna be the most impressive core so far, I think, when it's done. And it's just some lone wolf guy who's doing it.
Yeah. See another guy who's passionate about it. I'm sure he knows about the PGM or has a PGM.
Probably.
It's very cave heavy here. So, but yeah, you just look at the sprites. Like that's the thing is like you've got all these sprites. It's not slowing down. The only slowdowns that happen are actual slowdowns that the actual game does, intentionally. But I mean, there's just so many sprites on the screen. Everything's spinning around. It's just, it's. I find them very hard to play, but they're still very enjoyable.
Yeah, they're the kind of games where I would love to be like an expert at them one day. But it just got to practice more.
Yeah, well now that you've got them, I suppose the next sort of thing, I know, where you're living's not very big, not a lot of space, but I suppose the next thing would be to actually, get some sort of arcade machine or a candy cab or something like that, and actually, play them on a real machine. Because I mean, obviously, that's the ultimate way to play them.
I'd love to have like Blast City or something would be the ultimate for my space.
Yeah, I've got a couple. I got 4 low boys, so they don't take up a lot of room. So I've got 2 verticals and 2 horizontals.
Nice.
And then I just rotate the games around. If one runs Demon Front, and I just leave it at that because one of the kids likes to play Demon Front, so I normally leave that in one of my machines, and then I just toggle around other games that I'm interested in at the time and want to play. But
I really like Modern Vintage Gamer just did his game room tour, and he has a Blast City and a Mini Cute. And he has the Mini Cute set up as his vertical cab, and I thought that was brilliant for a small space, because then you've got 2 cabs, but it's not like full-size cabs taking up your whole room. And plus, the Blast City can do 30 kilohertz and 15, which is nice.
Yeah, does it do 25 as well? I assume so.
I don't think it's tri-sync, no. I think it's just 15 and 30.
15 and 31. Yeah, that's common. There's a lot of most of the Neo chassis that we work with over here, and obviously there'd be some in America as well. They're dual, but they're dual. They do 15 and they do 25. So for your Daytona and Sega Rally, and
that would be awesome. Yeah.
All those games that ran at 25, the same chassis will do a 15 or a 25. So
I just got my. I have like 50 games, but I just got my first VGA game, Arcana Heart Full.
Yeah, I watched. You had what video was that? I watched a video where I think you unpacked it. I think.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember which one it was, but it was definitely one of your videos. Because you were talking about whether it does VGA through the finger or if it was on the connector. I assume
it's a weird one. It's like JAMA, but it does it through the JAMA edge. It does the VGA.
Yeah, that's more uncommon. Normally they just put a VGA plug in and you do it straight from that. And the JAMA finger is just obviously the inputs. Yeah, and there's a lot of games like that. Like a lot of the even the JVS stuff that converts to the JAMA boards for the pinouts. You use the video straight out of the machine, and then all the inputs go straight into the JAMA finger, and is normal, like a normal JAMA cabinet.
Yeah, I just my house is so small. Right now, I'm like lucky to even have this PVM. Like it took a lot of persuasion for me to get that approval.
Yeah, well, I'm not allowed to have any more arcade machines. Not really meant to have any more boards and stuff either, but I still do, but not a lot. I mainly only collect at the moment. My main collection is obviously PGM cartridges. Obviously, and that's really the only area. That's the main area that I'm collecting at the moment. I'm not.
PGM is so much easier to manage than normal arcade stuff because it's just a cart for the most part. I mean, minus the single board games are kind of bigger, but
yeah, and that's really cool. So yeah.
Yeah, cool. Well, let me switch over to do it on Pachi, and we'll call that the last game of the night.
Sounds good.
And it's the game I'm the worst at, probably.
Yeah, just give them and remembering patterns and doing all that, it becomes quite a complex game to try and finish. But to play is very, very fun. And then that's really cool. You don't have to be a world record holder. You can just play games for fun, and I think that's the cool thing. And as we've mentioned, it doesn't have to cost an absolute fortune to have some really good looking games.
Yeah, I just can't believe I never in my whole arcade collecting career thought I would own a cave game, just because every time you see one go for sale, it's just insane nowadays. I mean, and some of them are $5,000 plus.
Yeah.
So to have the actual games here is pretty special.
It really, like the cave shoot, they're just so expensive, and they're the last boards that I'm probably I may not even be able to buy them because obviously as things get older, those boards are getting more expensive, and I mean, all I want them for is for scanning them in, for completeness, but they're just so expensive, and it's even faulty ones. I saw a faulty one, and I kid you not, it was either $1,000 or $1.50 US.
Yeah, we're getting to that point now, and I've seen Broken Turtles TMNT go for like $300-400. Like it's insane nowadays. Yeah, like it's beyond what I could have afforded starting out for sure.
It is. It really is crazy. The other interesting thing to note about this has the black and white version, doesn't it? If I remember correctly, there is 2 versions for it. The white label and the black label. Are they? How do
you switch between those on here?
I'm not exactly sure. I know some carts you can't see. You're meant to have a switch, but I thought that there was a boot option when you boot, that you could change it, or there's an option in the settings menu that changes it. But I might be wrong. The only ones I've played are the ones that are either black label or white label. I've never had one that did both, or that I could figure out how to make it do both. But I assume it exists because it's not just a ROM hack. that somebody's done. The two versions do exist.
I should show too. So I did some labels for PGM games because I wasn't super happy with the labels that are out there. I mean, there was actually a really good set by someone, but they were lower res. And I've got those here. I can pull those up. So I'm going to have these printed by my friend PBO Land from the Atari Age forums. And he'll have these available for people if you want these for like $5 each to have them professionally printed and cut. And I did one for all three games. The Dodonpachi Daiojo is just an exact copy of one that was out there. I just did it in high res and I added some text. And then I made my own Esquiluda one, kind of based on the same person's, and then I started from scratch with Ketsui, which is what I've got pulled up here right now, just to show people.
Yeah, the custom labels, that's another big area that a lot of people have been doing work in, and again, because the single PCBs don't have cartridge stickers, there was never any official stickers ever made. And yeah, I mean, if you can get them printed and get them cheap for $5 a sticker, that's pretty cheap.
Yeah, I'm gonna send these all to him, and then I'll also put the files up, like the TIFF files, so that people could print them at home if they wanted to.
Yeah, no, they look really, really nice. There are a lot of people doing it, which is great, because there's lots of different labels for the same game, and it's like, oh yeah, okay, this one's, you like this.
I was surprised at how hard it is, because I've done like 340 different game covers for Aurora, which is the Xbox 360 service. Like if you mod your 360 and you connect it through Unity, you get your covers automatically through Aurora or through Xbox or through through Aurora.
Yeah.
And so I've made 340 covers, and I'm really good at game covers, but making cart labels for the end of the label is just absolutely the worst format to work in on Earth because of the shape of them. And it took me like a couple weeks now to make just these three to where I'm happy with them, because you basically have to do everything on your own from scratch, because it's such a weird, unless you're stretching the aspect ratio or something, which I don't like to do, it's hard to get it looking good.
Yeah, the high quality of the labels is really, really needed. I was going to print some that I'd seen, but I don't think I've got a color laser, but I don't think my color laser would do it justice. I'd have to find some special paper or something. I'm not sure if color lasers have special paper. I assume they do.
PBO Land, he tested out a whole bunch of label paper and found one that he was happy with. But he has like a really expensive printer too.
Yeah, well, mine's not anything expensive. It's just a color laser. I
did these though in 600 DPI, which is the big difference between my labels and other ones. So they should print out like really nice and crisp, like looking like an OEM label.
So is he cutting them as well? Yeah,
he cuts them. He does it by hand, but it looks die cut really the way that he does it.
Yeah. Yeah, well, see, that's even better again, because that's one of the things that you have to do. Plus,
that's the part that I suck at.
Having a sticky side as well is another thing. I know there are spray adhesives, but I'm not sure whether they would affect the actual labels. I've seen people do it that way. Yeah.
My old method was I would go to somewhere like Office Max or Office Depot, one of those office places, and take in my own laser label paper and have them print on that, and then have them laminate it there. And then when you cut it out, the back actually peels off, and that makes a nice glossy surface.
Yeah.
But you get bubbles. No matter how careful you are, you get a bubble in the lamination. So it's never as perfect as the way like somebody who prints it professionally does it.
That's a common thing with as you've seen of a lot of PGM carts, is the labels do come off. So it's something, or the corners fold or something like that. Like they're really, really terrible for the labels falling off.
And you've got, every time you open up the cart, you bend it just like a Neo Geo.
Yeah.
You damage the label no matter how careful you are.
Yeah. No, it's a pain. I mean, there are a lot of cartridges. You go to buy the cartridge and there's no label. It's like, okay, well, what game is it? But it's if you're into, obviously, not being a complete perfectionist, but if you want nice carts, it's nice to have a nice label. So it's good to have people designing labels for these carts, because you know, your labels, either they come off or they get folded or they look crappy, so they need replacement. Or with the cave shooters, there was no labels for these, so you know, people have to design something to actually use. So yeah, it's important, and it's good to get some. I think if we can find more people to print them and sell them and stuff, I think more people will probably buy them, and then, you know, that'll bring more interest into Fluffy's PCBs, and, you know, everybody's happy.
Yeah. I kind of, a while ago, I was making my own version of the Neo Geo holo labels, because I kept buying these crappy bootlegs or cheap games that were missing the labels, like you said. Because you can get them, you know, like Metal Slug 5 I got with no label. It was dirt cheap back when I got it, and so I just had to design my own label for it. And I got Shock Troopers 2 that way. I ended up selling off a bunch of those because they're like worth their weight in gold lately.
Yeah, I've bought carts before because it's not a problem. If the game is something I've already got, well then, you know, I can either use the cart shell, or, you know, like I can, you know, give one of the carts to a friend or something. Like it's not a problem with you know, PGM carts that don't have labels, because, you know, and it could be a version that I don't have that isn't dumped, or one that I haven't seen. So it's you know, it can be a little bit exciting like that. That was one thing I did a lot of. The Super Nintendo had in Japan a flash cartridge, an original flash cartridge made by Nintendo, which you could actually get games flashed onto.
The Satellaview?
No, that's the satellite one.
Or, you're talking about the cart service thing they had, yeah.
Yeah, the flash cart.
What was that called?
They were power cartridges, Nintendo Power cartridges.
Yeah, Nintendo Power. Yeah, that's what Buffalo Joe is really big into that, right?
Yeah, I dumped over 400 meg of cartridges.
Oh yeah, you passed those on to me like a year ago, right?
Yeah, it was a while ago. Yeah.
That's right.
So, and that's another thing. Like at the carts, they don't have anything written on them. You don't know what's in them until you dump them.
And you scanned some really rare manuals and things too for those.
Yeah, I started to do one. I've never finished it just because it was over 200 pages. So I scanned the first 50 pages, I think, and released that, and then I was going to do the rest, but I haven't really had a chance to do it because I'm doing it all with a flatbed scanner. So you have to, you know, scan the page, and then you got to turn the page to the next one and scan, and, you know, it gets a bit repetitious and you know what I mean, like time consuming. So I never finished it.
Yeah, it was really interesting though to see Mario stuff, you know, that you've never seen before. Mario and
the art, the actual
magazine
artwork.
art, yeah,
the artwork that was in it. Yeah, there was a lot of stuff that was really, really cool as well. But that's another. There's a lot of different people who've been doing that now. More people are into it. I heard the other day that the satellite side of it, that service, that a new game had been found, and I think someone made it work now, which is really, really cool. The biggest problem with the satellite stuff is a lot of stuff was broadcast for the game when you were playing it.
Yeah, so and then they lost the audio or
data is not there anymore because the satellite doesn't exist. That would be really cool if Nintendo would come out and release that data. Just like how they've had some with the Super NES.
Yeah, on the Switch. Yeah.
Yeah, on the Mini, there are ROMs there that were never English, but they've done an English.
They should do that because people would, like, for Zelda, you know, lots of people would buy that.
There's a Zelda.
Yeah.
I think there's 2 for the satellite that were released, but I'm not sure why Nintendo doesn't, because they've obviously still got all the files. You know, like they've definitely got the files there, so I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure. Like, it's like other companies. Let's say Electronic Arts, ECA. They release a lot of their games after they're so like 10 years old or something. They release the game for free. You know, like and sometimes they release the source code as well. So there are definitely companies out there. I think ID Software. id Software does that as well. They release stuff. You know, the
definitely not Nintendo.
Yeah. Well, Sega doesn't either.
for free.
Doesn't really either. But that stuff where you can never get the data again because it's satellite only. That would be really cool because there'd be games there that they're not playable because they don't have sound or they don't have all the graphics data.
That's a really cool use of the MSU1 function of like SD2SNES is to add back in the live broadcast data to those Satellaview games.
Yeah, it is, and it's actually quite interesting. The actual units, even though you can't use the units with a satellite anymore because the satellite's not there, they go for so much money. They are so expensive. Even though you can't do anything with it, which I'm not sure why. I mean, I know they weren't. The user rate or uptake of them wasn't huge. It wasn't what Nintendo really wanted, and they fell out a little bit with the satellite people. What was it, Giga something was the satellite name. They fell out with them towards the end, and that's why the service really sort of got cancelled. But yeah, it'd be nice if they would release that data. Like, that would be so cool. We'd have games to play that you can't play or that are incomplete and there's no music, and we all know how music's needed for playing games. Like, that's it just.
Are you friends with Luigi Blood? He does a lot of the Satellaview stuff. He's in my Discord.
Yeah, I don't think so. There's not a lot of people that I chat to on a regular basis just because of time constraints. But I think it's great how people are definitely getting into it, and maybe one day Nintendo will. They might do maybe another mini or some sort of mini type device, and release all these games in English and with all their data. I think that would be really cool, and especially because there are Zeldas, and we all know how popular Zelda is.
Really big games, yeah.
It's huge, but it was like how they did the mini. I think got an English version of Mario RPG. I think the mini got that one. I think they did the English version, which was never released until the mini. So yeah.
Oh, I think you're thinking of Star Fox 2, maybe.
No, I think they did Mario RPG. I'm pretty sure they did that in English. They released that on the mini. Okay,
they had that in English.
I might be wrong, but I thought the Super Nintendo did actually have that. They had it on the mini. Anyway, that's probably something to check, but I thought it did actually have it on the mini. But that's another game that wasn't released in English. That was actually one of the games I ended up doing a lot of reproduction carts, because there is a translation. A couple of people have done translation on it, and that was one thing I did in the early days, was building Mario RPG carts that were in English. They were quite popular.
I think there is an English version, but I think it was expensive, so people used to convert it to English or something to save money, to get like the $1 version of the Super Famicom cart. Is that what it was?
I'm not sure. I didn't think it was ever released in English. I didn't think it was. I think the other tricky thing that was, it's an SA1, isn't it, from memory? As well?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, so that made it a problem as well, because you need the SA1 chip to run it as well.
I'm just getting annihilated now. This is definitely the shooter I need to practice up at the most. Which is funny, because I think people think Ketsui is harder than this, but this is way harder than me. Oof, I'm gonna call it a day here. I'm just getting annihilated.
Well, I think you've probably done a little bit better than me. I'm sure I would have been dying quite a bit more.
Oh, I don't know. I have no chops at Dodonpachi, apparently. Diojo. Well, why don't we wrap this up? I would like to have you back on again, and just to talk about arcade stuff someday if you're free.
Yeah.
I know you've been on quite a while now.
Yeah, that's totally cool. I'd love to be honoured to be able to come back and talk about different stuff. Definitely, it'd be really cool. I think it would go really well.
Yeah, and thank you so much for sending me this stuff, and I'm going to feature a lot of this again in individual streams, and I'll keep... Maybe when the next package comes in from you, I can have you back on again to walk me through that.
Yeah, well, that's...
Because you said you've got some surprises in there.
Yeah, a couple of weeks' time. Somewhere between I think it's 14 to 17 days, somewhere around there. So, 2 or 3 weeks is, that's all totally good and fine.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. All right, well, I'll let you go get back to your day now. It's really late here, but it's like mid-afternoon for you. So thanks a lot for coming on. I really appreciate it, and thanks for getting the word out about PGM and for supporting it so much like you do. It's just a great preservation project for a really great system, and it's cool to be part of getting the word out on it.
Cool. Thanks for having me. All
right. Thanks a lot, Tim.
Thanks. Bye.
All right. Well, thanks for tuning in here. A huge thank you to Tim. GC8 Tech is what he goes by online, and GC8Tech.com is his site. And I have a bunch of links down in the comments to 1UP Arcade, and definitely watch that walkthrough video. It's really cool of the arcade there to see exactly what he's been up to for all these years. Really high quality cabinets, and it's great everything he's doing for the PGM. And I've been just jumping right into the PGM, and I'm going to do a lot of streams featuring individual games in the future. And if you want to get one, you can get them as cheap as $35 to $50 for the motherboard and $50 for a game. And you're talking a game with enough 2D power to overpower pretty much any console, any 2D console that you have ever come across. So this is a really cool system. And this was a special stream, so I think I'll be back on Saturday for the official weekly stream. And thanks a lot, guys. A huge thank you to my patrons. Patrons at any level get an invite to the SmokeMonster Elite Discord, where you can hang out with people like me and Tim and all of the cool people from the chat. I'm sorry I fell behind on reading chat comments here, mainly because when you play shoot 'em ups and nudie puzzle games, it's hard to focus on anything except for the game. But I'll have the you can read the chat comments and everything as the video goes in the rerun. But thanks a lot for joining, and I'll catch you guys on Saturday.